At this moment, the world has entered the Ice Age. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201. This is the 6th year of the Ice Age. The Earth now is no longer the Earth before, because with humans, even if they can see from afar, you can only see inside the planet. There may be some enchanted scientists or astronomers who think outside the galaxy. Yes, you may think about how our planet will continue to develop after experiencing a catastrophe, and now the topic they are thinking about has become a reality. That is, everything has become a reality in the 6th year of the Ice Age. Now it all begins. The mainland barrier is over. The city of steel is over. Dongfang has set sail for the next super development, and here is a Yanjing swimming pool, a supremely important place. Next point now. Come on. Come on. Come on, swim fast. At this moment, a fierce competition is going on in the swimming pool. In the case of -180 degrees above the ground, the room is warm like spring, which also therefore provides convenience. A giant swimming pool has been built in the center, which is usually open for the people to use. At the same time, in every city, hundreds of such swimming pools have been established according to the population for the people to use. At this moment, a city-to-city competition is held in Yanjing for almost a month. Teams from various cities are supporting their idols or people in their own cities. A burst of shouts almost blasted the roof. In today's Ice Age, it is very rare for people from various cities to gather together. In a competition like this at present, there is only swimming. The order from the above is to hold a city-to-city competition every month. At the same time, hundreds of swimming pools in the city are open every day. Then, according to the appointment, the number of people open, everyone can only be able to on the appointment. You can swim within the specified time. Some people will say, why should we learn to swim in such a cold day? This order came from the top and then passed on to everyone in the east, from the 80-year-old to the 2 or 3-year-old children. Anyone who has the ability to be autonomous must participate. At the same time, go to university, go to kindergarten. All schools have added a new course during the Ice Age, swimming. The state of national swimming has gradually become a popular subject in the East over time. The people don't know what is the purpose of this move in the East, advocating swimming for all. This did not happen during the civilization period, but it was listed as a course during the Ice Age. However, the people have no objection, because it is rare for everyone to get together. This is the only entertainment project that has the opportunity to get together during the Ice Age. Therefore, everyone cherishes this time. Look, Yanjing player 009 has surpassed Beicheng player 001. Yanjing contestant, come on. No, 001 is also stepping up. Look, he is about to surpass Yanjing number 009. In the new month, there will be 2 more dark horses in the competition, namely Yanjing 009 and Beicheng 001. Indoors, the host of this game was very excited. His host also drove the indoor atmosphere. The interior was lively. Outdoors, at -180 degrees, it was freezing cold and everyone could walk in thick winter clothes on the street. At this moment, in an inconspicuous corner of the room, someone wearing a mask was sitting and watching. This is a bit abrupt among a group of people, because the room is warm like spring and there is no need to wear a mask at all, but no one noticed him either beside him. Ying's father is watching the game below with relish. On a rare day off, Ying's father did not rest at home, but chose to watch the swimming competition. Well, he still supports the athlete in his city, Yanjing number 009. Who do you think will win? Ying Fu asked. Or which one do you like? What about you, father? That's right. The person sitting next to Father Pope was to win the midnight, because he was afraid of being recognized by others, so he wears a mask when he wins the midnight. Today's when midnight is a big red man in the East. It is not an internet celebrity, but an idol, a national idol, and a representative of extraordinary significance. Therefore, he must wear a mask, otherwise he does not know how much sensation it will cause. Even so, someone recognized Ying Fu, who was a resident of the same community as Ying Fu. Boy, I'm good at talking. Father Ying smiled, and the people who get along with Ying Ziyue are like brothers. In today's environment, there is an unspeakable feeling. Shacham number is good. Ying Ziyue said, Shacham? If it were not for Ying Ziyue, Ying's father would not have noticed Shacham. His eyes fell on the Shacham, and he saw the other party marching unhurriedly. He is determined to lose. Ying's father said, why, it's so slow, and it's far behind others, can it still win? Ying's father wondered. Zero fine flowers, it's not necessarily, win midnight confidently, just watch it carefully. Ying Ziyue said again. Ying Fu watched the Shacham carefully, and saw that he was about 10 meters behind others. He really couldn't understand how he could win, because he was so much behind. As a result, the final winner, Shacham, really won. Ying's father's eyes on Ying Ziyue have changed. When did his son become a prophet, or how did he know that the Shacham, who is so far behind, can win? On the way back, Ying's father kept asking questions, but Ying Ziyue didn't say anything until the dinner table. Ying's mother also asked questions. Only then did Ying Ziyue speak. Actually, I have been observing him. When I came out of the Shacham, his overall physical fitness and mental state are better than others, although it seems to be a step slower than others. In fact, he is striving for victory and stability. For example, Yangjing and Beicheng players, although they are faster than others at the beginning, they are actually overdrawing themselves. So, Ying Ziyue didn't say much, because he was not a talkative person. But the father of Win always feels that, if he wins midnight, it seems that there are other meanings. He is puzzled, and looks at Win Midnight. Win Midnight, where he held his forehead. Ying Ziyue felt that he had explained clearly enough. Ying Fu's eyes reluctantly. Ying Ziyue can only use an analogy, saying, it's like the Eagle Nation. They set up a space station. From the very beginning, they surpassed all countries, one step faster than all countries, and seemed to be a Rying family, but his overall strength was insufficient. The technology is far from being achieved. Just like Yanjing and Beicheng, their overall mental state and physical fitness are not as good as those of Shacham. That was the case. Ying's father suddenly realized. Well, when Midnight nodded and continued to eat. 5 minutes later, Ying's father patted his head abruptly and said, no, do you mean anything else? When Midnight, why didn't he realize that when father had such a real time? You think there are other meanings, right? Ying Ziyue smiled, but he really had no other meanings. No, you let the whole people learn to swim, go to kindergarten, go to university, and make swimming a compulsory course. There must be other meanings. When Midnight. Then next, please wait and see. Death Chapter 202. After Ying Ziyue and Ying father talked, the national swimming boom was extremely high. While the West is still struggling for survival, in the East, everyone puts extra energy into swimming. Going down to kindergarten, going to university and other schools, swimming has become a compulsory course, like infrastructure, mechanics, etc. It has become a compulsory course. If you fail to pass, you will not be able to graduate or enter school. Some people don't understand why swimming is one of the compulsory courses, because this course is really tasteless. During the Ice Age, there is ice everywhere, and you have no chance to get into the water at all. However, the state's order must have another meaning. Some people have deeply analyzed it. What's more, the state's arrangement has never made a mistake. On June 1st of the Ice Age, a new public 18/7 announcement spread throughout the country. To provide the enthusiasm for swimming among all the people, the state will base on each city, each district, each community, each building, each household, and each person rewards for their performance. The specific performance is as follows. Each city will arrange various competitions involving each region, each community, each building, and each household, according to the age group, and adopt a points system. The rewards are as follows. Based on the points system, as soon as this announcement came out, there was a sensation among the people. Can swimming still take the points system? Can you still get rewards? It feels like the country is going to make big moves. As soon as this announcement came out, it was immediately on the hot search, and everyone was discussing it. Conjecture. What does the country want to do? It promotes swimming, and adopts a points system? How can I not understand this action of the country? Fang Hua Washang. I can't understand either. The Ice Age is all ice. What do you want to do when you learn to swim? Dried fish. I understand. I understand. I understand. Although we are now in the ice age, there will always be a day when the ice will melt. If we learn to swim, does that mean winning 10%? Chance of survival. 3000 weak water. I always feel the truth upstairs, under the hot surge. There are everything to say. Most of them are puzzled, do not understand what the country is doing. A small group of people gradually approach the truth after reasoning, but because too many people commented, the comments were quickly overwhelmed. But no matter what, when this announcement came out, the enthusiasm of the whole people in swimming was once again raised. Workers, students, children, and people from all walks of life were all involved in swimming in their spare time. If there are not so many facilities, or the appointment cannot be made, everyone will create the conditions at home. As long as they think of it, the solution is more difficult than the difficulty. When the nationwide swimming boom is prevalent, it is obvious that the physical fitness of the people across the country is improving day by day, and the ability to withstand cold has also doubled. According to national medical statistics, during this ice age, the number of people received by fever departments was 2/5 less than in the civilized period. In a difficult environment, humans, like animals, have their own potential stimulated in order to adapt to the environment. At the same time, on June 1st, the Southern factory also received a new task order after being handed over by the head of the factory. It will be distributed to the heads of each branch. Director, do you want to make an aircraft carrier again? Director, this is similar to an ice-breaking aircraft carrier, but it's not an ice-breaking aircraft carrier. The country, what are you going to do? Yes, isn't the icebreaker carrier not enough? A personal question asked. The factory director did not answer their questions because he was also puzzled. Why did the country vigorously develop aircraft carriers? The director of the factory also didn't know. He also received the above order, and the above did not tell him what is the significance of this move. Just let him complete the order on time. If it can't be done, you can only work overtime, or he, the factory director, should not do it. You can just do it. If it can't be done, you branch managers don't do it either. Haha, the factory director, we are joking. Hearing that the factory director said so, all the branch factory directors said seriously. At the same time, they go back and pass the new tasks to the hands of every worker. Each worker is responsible for a different assembly line, because everyone has done this process before, so everyone is very confused. Why do you want to make an aircraft carrier again? Is the country's aircraft carrier demand so large? The workers all know that the resources required by aircraft carriers are very large, so the country easily does not issue such a mission, and now it is necessary to make the materials needed for the aircraft carrier. At the same time, some steps are different from before, and workers need to relearn this process. Director, what are you going to do? A worker asked the branch manager. He didn't know, so the branch manager took the general manager's words and said, if the order cannot be fulfilled within the specified time, then don't do it. Worker. As a result, everyone went to work again. After receiving a new task, everyone did not rest and devoted themselves to every process that they were responsible for without stopping. No one dared to steal and skid, because this is related to the aircraft carrier, and the inspection is very important. Strict. The process is even more complicated, and it may also involve the next trend of the big country. On July 1st of the Ice Age, after everyone began to deliver the work one after another new task was issued. And this time it involves artificial islands. 2 or 3 years ago, artificial islands have been put into the ocean one after another. Because of the tsunami and the extreme cold, all the artificial islands were frozen on the sea surface. Therefore, the project was shelved. Meters, even hundreds of meters, or hundreds of kilometers of artificial islands are connected together and distributed on the ocean, which is very spectacular, and its foundation is beyond the technology of civilization. It can be in the ocean, at tsunami, and extreme cold. In such a cruel environment, it still stands on the sea. The artificial islands are fully equipped with various facilities, which are completely modeled on mainland cities. Because of the previous triple disasters, the artificial islands have gradually withdrawn from everyone's sight, and the construction of various facilities, and so on is also slowly proceeding. Point now, artificial islands have been put on a new agenda. Point the construction of various facilities was reincorporated into the engineering plan, and at the same time, the floating slab foundation materials needed for artificial islands were made again. Point in the plan of the factory director, after the construction of underground passages and glacier barriers, they re-received the project plan, and the first batch of artificial islands will increase to 30. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203. Dong Fang's action was originally carried out in secret, but couldn't bear all the actions from all directions. The movement was very loud, so it was passed to the Eagle Nation. Point for more than 2 years after the triple disaster, Roddy did not pay attention to the East, so he missed the trend of the East. After experiencing the construction of underground passages and the glacier barrier, Roddy paid attention to the East again. Therefore, he did not miss the East again. Any party trends, and a series of engineering measures such as artificial islands and aircraft carriers in the East have not concealed Roddy's eyes at this time. In the warm meeting room, Roddy wore a suit and combed his hair meticulously again. The drink in his hand had been replaced by tea. He looked at the East with a stern face and listened to the next report. You said that the East has begun to build artificial islands again. Yes, Minister. There is also an aircraft carrier. I heard that it is also in production. Roddy didn't speak in the following. After a while, Roddy turned his head and asked the Deputy Minister, "What do you say they are going to do?" The Deputy Minister was distracted and said, "East 02 has always been like this. In the eyes of poor Easterners, it is always necessary to make more preparations so as to feel more secure." Minister of Infrastructure, what about you? Roddy seemed dissatisfied with the answer from the Deputy Minister. Said point the Minister of Infrastructure also replied similarly, "What the East does is useless. They are destined to disappear on the surface, and our Eagle Nation will be the last country and the only country on this earth." Minister Roddy, without getting the answer he wanted, Minister Roddy turned his head and continued to look at the East silent. Point after 6 years of Ice Age. During these 6 years, everyone was forced to grow up, and the same is true for every country. Everyone knows that they will never return to the civilized period. If you want to survive, you can only work hard. Looking ahead, you can't treat the same thing with some old concepts from the past, or you can change your mind. Under the dynamics of the East, something must happen. Point as the Ice Age enters the 6.5 years, all resources are becoming more and more scarce, and every remaining country cherishes their current resources very much. The East acts like this, and will never do useless work. Other than that, is there no other movement in the East? Yes, Minister. Say, the East has ordered that everyone must learn to swim. Roddy turned his head, eyes filled with confusion. Point obviously, this order is too inexplicable and too tasteless in today's Ice Age. Point in the Ice Age, the endless glaciers, 180 degrees below zero above the surface. Everyone wants to go out. They need to wear cold clothes and oxygen masks. In this way, Western people dare not go without the support of more cold protection tools. The surface, and the East, living on the surface, ordered everyone to learn to swim in this cruel environment. This chain of behaviors are connected together, as if something is present in Roddy's mind, like a fog. Something obscures it. Point finally, Roddy gave the order after careful consideration. Point the next day, an announcement was posted on the hot search for the future of the country. Next, there will be national swimming, and everyone must participate in order to prevent the people from being burnt out or not taking it seriously. Roddy directly gave the order to die. Point his decision was naturally opposed by other ministers. The minister is really crazy, and everyone swims. This is simply unrealistic in today's environment. They live under the surface and lack all resources, especially water resources. Every citizen can drink only 1 bottle of fresh water a day, and everyone is careful to maintain it. Physical strength and body heat. There is no extra water and strength to learn to swim. What's more, in today's environment, who is still in the mood to take a bath? The announcement was still made, and the reaction was almost all opposition. The low-level people in the West try their best to survive every day. Every day there is only one bottle of water and a few meals of bread. Although the middle and high-level life is better, it is not known how much worse than the standard of living in the civilized period. Level. Everyone is struggling to survive. It's very difficult to just live. Go learn to swim. This is totally unrealistic. What does this mean? Learn to swim. I'm more concerned about why our food is declining day by day. Rocky. I'm starving to death. There is not enough food at all. I strongly urge the country to increase our daily food consumption. Tina. Yes. Instead of issuing such an order, the country should think about how to feed the people. It is the former economist, and his words are the most praised point. There was a lot of opposition from the Western people, and they were puzzled by the intentions, and Roddy did. He didn't understand the Eastern intentions, so naturally he couldn't convince everyone. However, the order has been issued, and cannot be withdrawn. Apart from causing a mournful voice, this order has unfortunately died before its implementation. The more so, the more disturbed Roddy's heart became. Under his order, he withdrew part of the resources that were about to be put on the space station to continue to strengthen the underground bunkers, open up the underground bunkers, and build ships. Roddy's decision, especially the last one, was completely selfish. Everyone was kept in the dark, except that the deputy minister knew about it. Roddy was afraid of death and didn't dare to bet. He didn't know whether this decision was correct. It is still the area where the desert country is located. Now the former desert country has been replaced by the ocean. At the same time, the extreme cold swept through and frozen the ocean. Under the ice surface, the former desert country became a relic of the seabed. People who only wait until the future come to dig, or will be buried in the ocean forever. A burst of ice suddenly cracked, and then, as if it were a signal, it continued to crack and spread. The dusty ice surface and seawater continued to emerge. The seawater was surging and hit the ice surface. As the seawater spread, more and more ice surfaces merged. The ocean, which was loved by the extreme cold, finally began to unblock. This scene is still unremarkable. Even if it is photographed by satellites, it will be considered normal. This seems to be an omen. No one knows what they will encounter next. A new era is coming. Chapter 204. On August 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, the first batch of 20 island floating flat foundations was completed and installed. After the installation is completed, other facilities will be installed. It is built completely simulating mainland cities, and all facilities, such as hot blast furnaces, steam pipes, wind turbines, etc., are upgraded on the original basis and installed on artificial islands. This is a project involving infrastructure, mechanics, and other departments. According to the above requirements, everything must be perfect because it involves the survival of humans in the future and the direction of the future era. The installation of all facilities on the artificial islands, built in the first 2 or 3 years, has been completely completed, and people have gradually entered island life. Blizzard chariots made a rumbling noise on the ice, lined up in a row, looking from a high altitude, like little ants, driving on the ice, and soon reached the artificial island number 1. Artificial island number 1 is composed of 100 huge floating slabs of various areas, covering an area of about 7,000 square meters, and can accommodate 28,000 people, except for facilities, and can accommodate 20,000 people. This is just one of the islands, which can hold 20,000 people, while the largest island can hold 500,000 people, and the smallest island can hold thousands of people. Sitting in the blizzard chariot headed in front is Chen Liang, the chief in charge of island construction. Boom. As the blizzard chariot made a huge noise, and as the island got closer and closer, Chen Liang sitting in the car was slightly excited. When they came to artificial island number 1, someone had already picked them up. Their blizzard chariot carried the materials needed on the island. Those who came to pick up the materials needed on the island, Comrade Chen Liang has worked hard, said Zhao Liang, The middle-aged man who came to respond. The two held their hands tightly, both very excited. It's not hard, but if Comrade Zhao Liang has any needs on the island, just ask. Yes, certainly. At this moment, in the ice and snow, it was bitterly cold. After some inventory, Chen Liang and Zhao Liang formally completed the handover. Zhao Liang waved his hand, and then bid farewell to Chen Liang. Chen Liang watched Zhao Liang gradually go away, and then he stood at the entrance of the island, observing the island. Looking from south to north, and then from east to west. A picture was born in his mind. Because Chen Liang is the general person in charge of island construction, no one knows the island better than him, and Chen Liang knows every detail of the construction. A sense of pride emerges spontaneously. Chen Liang has participated in countless constructions throughout his life, designed many brilliant works, and won countless honors, but he is very humble as a whole, and he often uses humility to make progress to encourage himself. But at this moment, Chen Liang couldn't hide it. He was really very proud. This is the best work he has participated in the construction of his life. At the same time, Chen Liang admires the man behind this artificial island very much. Chen Liang cast his gaze to the sky, and the wind was blowing. It was 12 o'clock and the sky was bright. Chen Liang said with emotion, "A generation is stronger than a generation. Yes, one generation is stronger than one generation." Zooming, the engineer next to him answered, "Do you know who I'm talking about? Our guardian of the great country Winds Midnight." Zooming knew who Chen Liang was feeling. Now in the entire East, there is no better guardian than the young guardian of the great country. Yes, it's really amazing. Chen Liang sighed again. However, a number of artificial island foundations have recently appeared, and I always feel that something is going to happen. Chen Liang turned around and said, "From the new novel group 872,847,971 this group updates daily novels. From the new novel group 872,847,971, something is going to happen." Zooming didn't understand. The preparation of the artificial island was an order from above. It must have its use. I don't know what Chen Liang meant. Seeing Zooming puzzled, Chen Liang shook his head and stopped talking, but looked up to the sky again. Chen Liang's heart was vaguely excited. He never felt like a miss. Next, something must happen. And the artificial islands they participated in will definitely come in handy. He really looks forward to it. After the completion of the first batch of artificial island foundations, all the materials required for the 10 aircraft carriers will be shipped out, and then they will be assembled. The assembly will also take a certain amount of time. After the assembly is completed, it will be launched for testing, etc. Waiting for a series of links, developed in an orderly manner under this series of operations. What really means population is power under the command of Wind Midnight and the participation of the National Labor Force, the only country in the East that can withstand disasters and walk on the eve of disasters. A whistle sounded. At this moment, the whistle of the game was ringing in the Ocean Brigade. In such a severe cold environment, most of the residents hide in the warm house and dare not go out. In front of the first unit of the Ocean Brigade, a group of people are eager to try and flop. As one person jumps into the sea, all of a sudden, everyone shouted cheering. This scene is really surprising, because the weather at the moment is -180 degrees, and the ocean temperature is extremely cold. Only some organisms can survive in the water, such as the North Sea warehouse, where oxygen is extremely high, and many organisms gather in there. By adapting to the environment and promoting evolution, humans are far from being able to dive into the water in a weather of -180 degrees without persisting for 5 minutes. This person was pulled onto the boat. He was wearing thick winter clothes, and could not stop the cold. The temperature adaptation of the human body had reached the limit. If he continued to stay in the water, he would freeze into a popsicle. The winter clothes he wears are made of special materials, which is why he can dive into the water. This special material has not yet been popularized, and is very rare. It is only allowed to be used in the Ocean Brigade, but because it is under development, so it is far from being able to stay in sea water for a long time. At this time, this team is playing a game. Who can stay in the water for a longer time? The cold-proof clothes are the same, but it is a test of people's willpower. It's so cold, so cold. While embracing him, shivering, the people who came ashore rushed into the warm room, which dissipated some of the chill, but they still couldn't stop shivering all over, and their teeth rattled. While the West is still seeking to survive, the East can dive into the sub-zero waters, which is beyond the imagination of all Westerners. Leader. Eyeing. Look, a group of people appeared. Chapter 205. Leader eyeing. Look. A group of people appeared. The captain of the Ocean Brigade was unable to accompany him because of something. Therefore, the captain, deputy captain, and some professors and deans of the marine department were accompanied by Ying Ziyue. They were all wearing thick winter clothes and oxygen masks, and they followed Ying Ziyue behind, or on his side. The captain of the first team is a middle-aged man with a beard on his face, which was cut off because he was wearing an oxygen mask, so he looks a little younger, and his eyes are full of respect to when the midnight point. Ying Ziyue's gaze was taken back from everyone in the race. He looked at the group behind him and smiled. I think maybe in the near future, everyone can swim freely in sub-zero weather. Yes, there will be that day, after going through various projects in a great country, and witnessing how this great country survived the disaster. Everyone is full of self-belief. Then, Ying Ziyue turned around, and came to another part of the fleet. The people behind Ying Ziyue looked at each other. They didn't know why Ying Ziyue suddenly appeared in the Ocean Brigade. After all orders were communicated from the upper level. Like this, the 200 came from Ying Ziyue. It's really true. It's too rare. In the past, for example, on the eve of 3 disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme cold swept through the triple disaster, Ying Ziyue once inspected the Ocean Brigade. At other times, orders were issued directly from above, so everyone was puzzled. It seemed that is foreshadowing something. Everyone continued to follow in the footsteps of winning the midnight, and then everyone saw the aircraft carrier in the Ocean Brigade being drilled on the ice-breaking sea. After the pioneering of the ice-breaking aircraft carrier, the endless sea, waves of waves, slapped the hulls of aircraft carriers, the sky, the earth and the sky, and the cold wind howling. In such weather, especially near the ocean, severe weather occurs from time to time. Although several years have passed since the triple disaster that most affected the world, but in the past few years, various disasters it is still happening constantly, such as earthquakes, such as cold air, etc. The impacts are raging on this continent. The location near the ocean is even worse. Although most of the oceans have been sealed by extreme cold ice, an earthquake has caused the plates to loosen, the underground seawater surges, and various huge ice blocks split and collide with each other. The strength is not inferior. As the mountain collapsed, waves hit the coastline. Under such circumstances, if left alone, the coastline will be occupied by these broken ice bodies. Under the extreme cold, icebergs and glaciers will form. In the future, it will cause great damage to coastal cities. Influence. Therefore, these aircraft carriers came in handy. They guard against and protect this continent in the extremely harsh environment. The missions issued by the captain, everyone in the process of confrontation, continue to carry out simulation exercises to prevent problems before they happen. They saw such a scene where they passed by when midnight. Dozens of ice-breaking aircraft carriers are facing the wind and waves, connecting one after another. With the change of wind direction and the impact of seawater, the aircraft carrier also changes direction. In such an extremely harsh environment, they are fighting against nothing. Take a step back, there are some young soldiers on the icebreaker aircraft carrier. They are very young and most of them have no family, but they are obliged to rush to the front line. If there is a tsunami, then these young soldiers will be the first wave to suffer. Ying Ziyue watched for a while, his eyes filled with appreciation, and then moved on to the next place. As one of the Eastern armies, the Marine Brigade was mainly responsible for maintaining the oceans, but now, their main responsibility is to fight the oceans that tsunami swept through, hitting the steel barriers of the mainland and the sea crossing bridges. In these super projects, it was the Ocean Brigade that started the icebreaker aircraft carrier, waiting for the super technology machinery to block the front line. Few people behind the project that almost everyone marvels at remember this unit point passing everywhere. A group of people saw with their own eyes that various simulation exercises and disaster prevention were proceeding in an orderly manner, and everyone did not relax in the slightest point. Finally, standing in the observation room of the largest aircraft carrier of the Ocean Brigade, the people behind When Midnight also stopped. The group looked outside, and they saw aircraft carriers facing the wind and waves. The world was changing color, and all aircraft carriers were guarding in the harsh environment. On the front line, do not flinch, everything. Are you ready? After a while, When Midnight spoke, the people in the room were startled, and didn't understand what it meant to win midnight facing the unknown disaster. Are you ready for everything? Ying Ziyue asked again, facing the eyes of the team captain, deputy captain, and other professors and deans, as if it was a power transmission. Everyone was excited. All they did was to meet the disaster of the Ice Age, and this day may come at any time. Report to the leader Ying. We are ready. Report to team leader Ying. Everything is ready. Report to the leader Ying. We are ready for the next disaster. A strong sound resounded throughout the observation room. Ying Ziyue took a step forward. Looking outside, the wind was blowing. The blizzard rustled down. Waves continuously hit the ice-breaking aircraft carrier. As the light slowly disappeared, the sound became louder, and at the same time each ship the lights on the broken air carrier were all on. Next, let us greet it together. Dongfang, never back down, never fear. When Midnight whispered to himself softly. In September, October, November, and December of the 6th year of the Ice Age, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th batches of artificial islands and aircraft carriers were delivered. The first batch of artificial islands were installed, and various facilities have been built on the islands. Then, some people from each city were stationed on the artificial islands to start working and living. All kinds of resources are also invested in the Ocean Brigade. On March 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, a strange phenomenon appeared on the eastern continent. The species that lived on the continent began to migrate in the same direction. They gradually moved away from the ocean, regardless of the dead mammoth. Still snow rabbits. Under the eastern satellite, we can see these species that survived the disasters of the Ice Age, all of them migrating inland. On May 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, this day finally came. The ice surface above the covered desert country completely turned into a sea of Wangyang. As if it were an omen, the ice surface of other oceans began to disintegrate. Chapter 206. On May 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, this day finally came. The endless ice covering the desert country has completely turned into a sea of Wangyang. The waves are rolling. With the formation of tornadoes on the sea surface, the waves are set off, about a few meters, ranging from a dozen meters, making a sound of shaking the sky. The surface is still sub-zero, so there are very few living things. What's more, the oceans covering the desert country are very harsh on all sides. Under such a difficult environment, there are no living things at all. The almost endless Dead Sea, in addition to water, is desperate at first glance, as if it will never reach the end. The oxygen concentration is extremely low, not to mention humans. Even fish can't survive. If there is no oxygen, any living thing can't survive. No matter what period of time, oxygen is irreplaceable and cannot be lacked. The sea is full of waves, and what appears under the sea is the once developed country, the desert country. The former desert country was famous for its oil, and was called a big oil country. The oil extracted from their country was transported to various countries. The quality of the oil was very good. Because of the position occupied, their country quickly squeezed into developed countries, with huge wealth, and everyone almost all wear gold and silver. Their country is indispensable in international status, but such a country eventually disappeared in the disaster of the Ice Age. As the water fluctuated, the buildings gradually revealed their clear faces. The tallest buildings in the desert country were broken by the impact of the tsunami and collapsed on the ground, just like the once glorious desert country, and all around it was a mess. No matter what such buildings have become once under the disaster, cars, motorcycles, bicycles, and other daily necessities were also submerged by the ocean, and as the picture became clear again, Under the soft sand, the skeletons were revealed. There are animals and humans mixed together. They all make the same action without exception. That is, escape. When disaster strikes, everyone and all animals desperately want to escape and want to live. This is a tragic scene, not just a desert country. At this moment, the global ocean forms an ice layer after the extreme cold swept, and it occupies an area much larger than that of the continent. Under those ice layers, developed countries and developed countries are buried in the water forever. Without seeing the sky, the buildings collapsed and corroded under the impact of the seawater, making them look very desolate and very desolate. Tragic. The global population is huge. When the Ice Age disaster comes, only the East, the West Eagle country, the Rose country, and other countries that are struggling to survive will disappear forever in the disaster Ice Age. Only after experiencing it can I know that this Ice Age disaster is simply the end of the world. Fearing, terrifying, and desperate. And now the disaster is far from over. All people think that when the surface is below zero, everything will be absolutely frozen. As long as the temperature does not rise, all oceans will be in an icebound state. But with the passage of time, the movement of the Earth's crust, and the fluctuation of underground water currents with the resulting force, the ice layer began to crack, and everything was like a no-me card. Once it started to crack, all the ice layers began to crack. The northern and southern glaciers are under satellite monitoring. The average height is 4,800 meters, the highest ice layer is 7,800 meters, and the temperature is more than 200 degrees below zero. It is a forbidden area for human beings. Under this thick glacier, the flow of water makes a faint sound, eroding the glacier. This is a picture uploaded by the satellite. At this moment, not only the East, but the West is also receiving the picture under satellite monitoring. The ice surface covering the desert country has become the ocean of Wangyang, and the ocean ice surface submerging that Ceres kingdom has also been disintegrated. From the satellite, a broken picture is very beautiful. Although the other 7 oceans are covered by ice, they can disintegrate underground. Sealed. The flow of water constantly hits the ice layer at this moment. On May 1st, the 7th year, the conference room of the Western Eagle country is full of arrows in this 7th year of the Ice Age, when it is possible to survive the disaster by being united together. The Eagle Nation's senior leaders had their first quarrel in history. As the quarrel escalated, they almost divided into 2 factions. One faction is headed by the minister and the other is headed by the deputy minister. I think more resources should be devoted to space stations and reinforcement, rather than building ships. New deputy minister Mark said zero fine flowers. The ship was built to retreat one more step. Didn't you see how many people died in our country due to the collapse of the underground castle caused by the earthquake? Roddy looked at Hen Point. With the extraction of resources needed by ships, they could no longer hide it and were discovered. Therefore, everyone held a meeting together to quarrel about whether to extract resources, to invest in ships. The deputy minister and the group believed that it was not necessary at all, because even if the ship was built, the West would not be able to come to the surface. Under freezing conditions, no creatures can survive, and the world is now frozen, and it will be built in the future. Ships are a waste of resources. Put away your ignorance. Roddy snorted coldly. Zero. It's been 7 years. Haven't you seen it clearly yet? The East has not only passed the first year of the Ice Age, but also the triple disaster. At this moment, it is still standing on the surface. Do you think that the Orientals are still simple-minded and well-developed limbs? At last, Roddy spoke, no longer a hard duck, and began to admit what Dongfang had done. When Roddy's self-righteous dream was revealed ruthlessly, the top executives became angry. Deputy Minister Mark used an Eastern idiom to say, Minister, there is a saying from the East, don't grow up other people's ambitions to destroy your prestige. If your behavior is known by the people, it will shake the people's confidence. Not to mention, we still have a space station. Perhaps God finally has mercy. The cooperation between the Eagle Nation space station and the Rose Nation has developed rapidly, and now it has entered a more impressive stage. The immigrant space station in the future is just around the corner. However, under the premise of all this, the Eagle Nation can survive the following disasters of all sizes. Roddy snorted coldly. Deputy Minister, when do you think we will be able to emigrate to the space station? In the future, we must, but when the time comes, if the Eagle Nation is gone, because of your decision, everyone, I have something to say. Naturalist and oceanographer Leomar and John spoke, breaking the depressed atmosphere in the room at this moment. Death Chapter 207. Say. With Rodder's permission, naturalist and oceanographer Leomar and John spoke successively. Naturalist Leomar said, I just received a photo taken by satellites. The photo shows that the ice covering the desert country has completely melted and turned into the Sea of Wangayang. It also shows that the ice covering that Sarist country is also it has already begun to melt, and if there is no extreme cold swept through, then all the oceans will be unsealed. Unblocking all oceans is just a matter of time. After the ocean is unsealed, there will be various unknown disasters. Oceanographer John said worriedly. They also only saw the photos uploaded by the satellite. Several people did not conduct in-depth discussions, but encountered different opinions between the deputy minister and the minister. Therefore, the two people stood up and said unknown disasters. 2000 naturally includes a large number of disasters such as tsunamis and rising seas, because there is no experimentation or inference. Oceanographer John dare not point it out specifically. Are you sure? Until this moment, the deputy minister was still insisting on his decision. Said although dozens of other high-level executives are not experts in this field, they have been talking about it after the oceanographer and naturalist John and Leomar said in the end, the Minister of Machinery, who was on the line with the deputy minister, said, I think what John said is not impossible. Once the ocean is unsealed, if there are a few more earthquakes, then there will be a huge tsunami, and then there will be a tsunami. The impact will cause great damage. A tsunami, after the Minister of Machinery said, dozens of people present all thought of Dongfang. At this moment, the East is the only country standing on the surface. All around their continents are oceans. If the ocean ice breaks down, and if there are a few more earthquakes, there will be a terrifying tsunami. If all the tsunamis hit the eastern continent by then, what about the continental steel barriers, separation walls, and glacier barriers? The East finally paid the price for their actions. The deputy minister contemptuously said, yes, Dongfang would never expect that. Although they survived the first 7 years of the Ice Age, they will be buried in the tsunami completely next time. The Minister of Machinery also said several other people also talked about it. The rattling atmosphere in the room disappeared. Dozens of people had a lively discussion on the pictures uploaded by the satellite. No one was discussing the issue between Roddy and the Deputy Minister Mark at the moment. Everyone was saying that the East would not carry on after the next tsunami, how much time is left for them to disappear on this continent, etc. And then discuss possible disasters and other issues. Roddy, who was left aside, heard the comments of the people and the apology from the Deputy Minister. Roddy was not very happy, but rather worried. Before they believed that the East would never be able to carry it over. The East had used their project to prove that they could not only survive the disaster, but also survive on the surface. According to the photos returned, the life in the East exceeded their expectations, perhaps as the subordinates have argued. When the ocean is unblocked and the entire tsunami hits the mainland, the East will suffer heavy losses and may also destroy the country. But I'm afraid that the East will have other means to deal with it. Roddy thought of the actions from the East just a year ago, and Roddy's mind gradually became clear. Faced with the conjectures in his heart, Roddy really didn't want to admit it, because it was too scary. How could the East have the ability to predict the profit? At this moment, another year has passed. I don't know how far Dongfang's actions have been. East, the bridge across the sea. At this moment, the time came to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky was gradually darkening, and the wind was blowing, passing by the glaciers and tsunami. There were various sounds of whining, floating in the air far, and finally dissipating in the air. The sea crossing bridge spanning the 3 oceans is very majestic and spectacular. It is impossible to see the end at a glance. When the bridge starts and ends, the beginning and the end are connected to 2 economic cities. The formation of the sea crossing bridge saves money. It took a lot of time. Later, the construction of the underground passage was completed, and all vehicles were transferred to the underground passage. The cross-sea bridge gradually faded out of the topics discussed by the Eastern people, but everyone couldn't help but be surprised and surprised when they mentioned the cross-sea bridge point. The bridges spanning the three large seas have been opened for traffic one after another, after being renovated by the triple disaster. Compared with underground passages, driving on a cross-sea bridge between the two cities saves the most effort. Therefore, many blizzard vehicles chose the cross-sea bridge to save more time. This is true. After all, the sea crossing bridge spans 3 sea areas, which greatly shortens the distance. At the same time, cities near the 2 economic cities have also chosen the sea crossing bridge point from the satellite. The blizzard chariot was driving on the cross-sea bridge, with only small black spots running side by side, or in a row in a very orderly manner, which also proved the majestic nature of the cross-sea bridge from the side point driving on the cross-sea bridge. Next to it is a towering railing, each of which is very thick, and made of special materials. When it stands at -180 degrees, it is only frozen with a layer of frost. If you change it to other buildings, it had long been frozen into an ice sculpture in the weather of -180 degrees, and then, as soon as the wind blew, it broke with a bang. Point. In addition to these supports, there is also a pavement, which is also made of special materials, so that it can be almost intact under the condition of -180 degrees. The strength of the East is so strong that the West can't even imagine it. At this moment, the blizzard chariot driving on the cross-sea bridge, Ying Ziyue was riding in one of them, and he followed Xiao Guofeng and other people to another city. Xiao Guofeng looked outside through special materials, and couldn't help but sigh. Every time I pass by here, I can't help but feel shocked. Xiao Guofeng said what everyone said. At this time, Ying Ziyue looked at Xiao Guofeng faintly, and then smiled and said, "Is it just shocking?" Xiao Guofeng didn't understand what it meant to win midnight. In fact, he had never understood what it meant to win midnight. Every decision the other party made seemed to be expected. The mainland steel barrier is a separation wall, so is the airship, etc. All things are prepared in advance before the disaster, and they are born in response to the disaster. Then what do you mean by team leader Ying? Xiao Guofeng asked cautiously, as if he had guessed something in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it, because it was really terrifying. Ying Ziyue shook his head, did not speak, looked at the window. The endless sea is still in a frozen state at this moment. Chapter 208. On June 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the temperature still stayed at -degrees at this moment. When the surface temperature reached -degrees, it did not continue to drop. Until now, it is still below 0. In the daily Eastern news, the weather forecasts broadcast, involving every region, stay at around -degrees. This is hard to imagine in the civilization period. The regional temperature can be as low as -degrees. What's even harder to imagine is that people can survive sub-zero temperatures. Although you need to wear thick winter clothes and an oxygen mask, this is incredible enough. They were able to survive the sub-zero weather. If they didn't really feel the cold deep into their bones, they would think they were dreaming. With the passage of time, the people in the East seem to have become accustomed to sub-zero temperatures. Wearing thick winter clothes with an oxygen mask will not be so cold when they go out of the city. Outside the city, they can almost reach the level of flying vigorously. In the past, everyone only felt a deep coldness invading the bone marrow, not to mention the construction of those super projects, which required much strength and mental will to support the pillar from morning to night. At this moment, the underground glacier passage and the long tunnel are busy with cars coming and going, and the ground is crushed as smooth as a mirror, as if something big is about to happen. As the camera turned, the camera came to Xihai Ecological Park. It is very busy here at the moment, as busy as never before, except for the construction of the ecological park and the rush to repair the ecological park. Sun Minghei, the chief in charge of this task, negotiated with Chen Yi, the new chief of the eco park. In the past, the person in charge of the northern ecological park was hit by a building because of repairs to a certain area. After rescue, he was not rescued and returned to this land forever. In fact, in this ice age, the person in charge changes very frequently, because as the person in charge, they are obliged to rush to the front line every time an accident occurs, and the accident of the ice age never knows whether it will come today or tomorrow. So, It is really unfortunate that this happened, but they will always be recorded in the annals of heroes of the Ice Age. Become a member of the heroes and be remembered forever by future generations. Comrade Sun Minghe, you have worked hard. Comrade Chenshi, you have worked hard too. The two shook hands with each other, making eye contact, and both of them were at ease. Be careful, these things are precious. The seedlings are seamlessly connected and transferred from the warehouse of the Xihai Ecological Park to the Blizzard Chariot Point. Tomato seedlings, cucumber seedlings, carrot seedlings, various vegetable seedlings and fruit seedlings, etc. have been transferred to this Blizzard Chariot Point. Sun Minghe, the person in charge of this mission, can be said to be under great pressure, because if they operate improperly, then these precious seedlings will die completely. In this kind of ice and snow, there is no chance of rescue, and moreover, there are regulations. It is more difficult to reach the specified location within the specified time, and Sun Minghe is most fortunate that the construction of the underground glacier tunnel saves time and distance. When the underground glacier tunnel was not built, they had to pass through icebergs and glaciers formed by countless snow and ice. The terrain was complicated, and there were many ice barriers, which required a lot of effort. After some transportation, this batch of vegetables and fruits was determined, without any emissions. Then, after Sun Minghe led the workers to rest, he set sail. Destination, Artificial Island number 3. After the Blizzard Chariots set sail, they attracted the attention of pedestrians. After knowing the purpose of these Blizzard Chariots, everyone was very yearning. Artificial Island number 3 is listed as the branch of Xihai Ecological Park. The floating foundation is 5,000 square meters. Sun Minghe was also surprised when he received the order from above, because he couldn't think of how the ecological garden would be divided and moved to the artificial island. Sun Minghe believes that the living environment of artificial islands is always inferior to that of the mainland eco park, not to mention that various plants have survived in the mainland eco park for a long time. He was afraid that he would not adapt, but Sun Minghe did not propose any meaning, and took the task. After that, he will not only transport this batch of vegetables and fruits, but also the next batch of various animals, such as cattle, sheep and poultry, will be transported to Artificial Island number 4. The two islands are adjacent to each other. Number 3 is responsible for plants, and number 4 is responsible for various animals, all of which are used as branches. Everyone guessed what this signal seemed to mean, but no one raised any questions, but took the task. The Blizzard Chariot made a rumbling noise, passed the streets, and finally all drove towards the underground glacier tunnel point. After entering the underground glacier tunnel, a brand new world appeared in front of everyone. No matter how many times you passed through the glacier tunnel, it was still the same as the first time. I couldn't hide the surprise and shock. It is too wide to accommodate the passage of the iceberg giant ship. Beside the iceberg giant ship, all Blizzard Chariots are as small as ants. When 200 sighted a giant iceberg ship passing by the Blizzard Chariot he was riding in, Sun Minghe raised his hand and continued walking. The construction of the underground tunnel provided great convenience. Originally, it took several days to reach the artificial island number 3. It took only 6 hours before Sun Minghe took the people out of the tunnel point. After going all the way, Sun Minghe quickly led people to the sea point. At this moment, the endless snowy white and hard ice surface needs to be penetrated by special machinery, and other nearby oceans have begun to disintegrate. It may not be long before this place will become a sea of Wangayang. But just before becoming Wangayang Dahe, all Blizzard Chariots, under the top order, began to race against time to transport various materials. Everyone doesn't know what they will experience next, but various actions seem to indicate that they will face an unprecedented disaster in the future. After another half an hour of sailing, Sun Minghe successfully came to Artificial Island number 3, and then to the person in charge of number 3 island. Sun Minghe shouted loudly, saying, Sun Minghe from the eastern continent brought the materials from the northern ecological garden to come. Hand over. I received it. Dongzigwen, number 3 of the artificial island. Chapter 209. On June 3rd, the 7th year of the Ice Age, animals kept in captivity by the people of the East were escorted by Blizzard Chariots and successfully completed their relocation. After that, Artificial Islands number 3 and number 4 officially became branches of the Ecological Park. The employees in charge of the training of the Northern Ecological Park were also part of the artificial islands number 3 and number 4. For them, they came with an important task. Although artificial islands number 3 and number 4 were built to simulate the Northern Ecological Park, the oxygen concentration, environment, and other aspects are still different from those of the Northern Ecological Park. Therefore, these employees come with tasks. Before they came, they had established a state of life and death, vowing to coexist and die with the ecological park branch. As logistics, what they shoulder is the food of the entire Eastern people. If there is no food, all Eastern people will fall into an existential crisis. At that time, even if they have escaped the various disasters of the Ice Age without food, they will slowly die on this continent. So you can see how important their tasks are. For these people, they are also proud, because part of the fate of the great power is in their hands. Rumble at this moment. The endless ice surface is extremely white. The sky is connected to the earth is connected to the sky. And a vast expanse of whiteness. In the cold wind roaring, the blizzard is falling, and a huge ship is driving on the ice point. The giant iceberg ship built from the east is the largest iceberg ship in the civilization and ice age so far. It is 500 meters long, 70 meters wide, and can reach a speed of 50 kilometers per hour, with a volume of 362 cubic meters, etc. Huge amphibious ice. The ship can slide on ice, and at the same time, it can also be placed in the water. Its bearing capacity can not only carry materials, but also withstand the impact of the tsunami point. Through simulation, the iceberg giant ship can not only be used as a carrying material, but when the tsunami comes, it can be side by side with the aircraft carrier. There is almost one such giant iceberg ship in every city. There are nearly 100 giant iceberg ships in total. If it is for engineering construction, or when it needs to carry important materials or large materials, the giant iceberg ship will be used and travel in the underground glacier tunnel. When it was not in use, it became a spectacular scene, and when it was not in use, it was parked outside the city. After a long time, this iceberg giant ship became an iconic building body, which is really too large. Point at this moment, it is not only a giant iceberg ship, but a total of 10. These 10 giant iceberg ships carry the important materials needed to build the island and the important materials that need to be installed on the island. The person in charge of this mission is still Chen Liang. The blizzard chariot he sits in the front is responsible for leading the way. Behind him is sliding one blizzard chariot after another, which is very spectacular. When the designated place was reached, the blizzard chariot stopped, and the giant ice and snow ship behind also stopped. Chen Liang wore a thick winter suit and an oxygen mask. He got off the blizzard chariot. A cold wind blew by, mixed with snowflakes, and Chen Liang could not help but shiver from the cold. Then, his eyes looked back. Under the noon sun shining on the giant iceberg ships, the epic sense of sight rushed towards his face, and for a moment, Chen Liang was proud of it. After waiting for about half an hour, one after another blizzard chariot appeared from the horizon and drove to Chen Liang. The team was led by a young guy who was responsible for leading the blizzard tank. He got off the blizzard tank, and behind him, the blizzard tank opened, and people continued to walk off the blizzard tank. They are a group of people responsible for installing and building the island. The young guy headed by came to Chen Liang and said, "Chen team, are everyone here? It's all here. Okay, let's do it." After the order was given, all the workers did not take a break and began the installation and loading and unloading of the island. Unloading started from the cranes on the giant iceberg ship. The floating flat foundation was hoisted by cranes, and the installation began. Seen from a high altitude. The endless ice surface is filled with people constantly busy. There are 500 pieces of floating slab foundation, each of which is about 1000 square meters, and the area is very large. Under the operation of various machines, the floating slab foundation is assembled. There are more than 5,000 people involved in the construction of the island this time, and this is only preliminary. After the assembly of the island is completed, the people who follow up will participate in the construction of the island. Rumbly all kinds of sounds resounded in this land. Everyone is in full swing. Everyone is trying their best to assemble artificial islands, and various machines are working together. In this ice and snow, this scene is not uncommon, because during the Ice Age engineering, the construction of cross-sea bridges and glacier barriers, and the construction of underground passages, and other projects, the scene of the participation of the whole people is truly spectacular, from day to night, and then from night to day. 7 days have passed. The temporarily installed lighthouse illuminates this area. As of 8 PM on the 7th day, the installation of the foundation of the largest island so far has been completed, with a total area of 1 million square meters and an area of about 1,500 mu. The artificial island foundation, that can accommodate 1 million people, is completed. The foundation has been laid. Seen from above, this scene is spectacular and stunning. It covers an area of 1 million square meters, which is equivalent to a second-tier city in the civilization period. This is the largest island so far. Such a large island is unprecedented and spectacular. Soon, it was photographed by Western satellites. LIOZAO, Western satellite transmitted the photos it took to the conference room. At this moment, there was no sound in the conference room, and everyone looked at this huge island with a slightly mixed mood. Still, the deputy minister opened his mouth and said, "It seems that Dongfang has already figured out a way out." The deputy minister was referring to the largest island that has been built in the east. His meaning is very clear. The ocean is gradually unsealed. After all unsealing is completed, tsunamis, floods, etc. will be inevitable. Then, it is only a matter of time before the inundation of the east has occurred, and the east has probably thought of this a long time ago. Therefore, through artificial construction the island come as their last escape route. The east is so naive. Do they think it is enough to build an island? When the tsunami comes, everything will be a funerary for the tsunami. All the projects in the east will be submerged in the tsunami. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210. Do they think it is enough to build an island? When the tsunami comes, everything will be a funerary for the tsunami. All the projects in the east will be submerged in the tsunami. Yes, Dongfang is destined to disappear in the next disaster. The deputy minister discussed with others, and Minister Roddy was also present, snorting in his heart. Although Roddy also thinks what the deputy minister said is reasonable, he always feels that Dongfang is more than just a little trick. Maybe he was too worried, Roddy thought. He poured himself a glass of water, brought the wine with water, and looked to the east. From his side, his head was white. In this disaster period, a decision made by a leader of a major country represents the destiny of a country, and Roddy bears the destiny of the last eagle countryman. After drinking this glass of water, Roddy turned his head as if determined. Slow down the process of the space station first, and devote all resources to strengthening the underground castle, and building an ark that can carry the people. Are you crazy, Roddy? The deputy minister couldn't help calling his name. Minister, what are you doing? If you stop the space station process at this time, do you know what the people will think? Minister, this decision of yours is too hasty. I suggest you retract this decision. Yes, the space station is a last place to survive. If you stop now, how will the Rose Country explain it? I have already decided. No matter what you say, you can't change my decision. As for the Rose Country, I will naturally explain it clearly to them. Roddy was cruel, said. He had been rebutted by so many people, as he expected, but he always felt that his decision was correct. Hopefully, there is not enough time, Roddy thought, and he squeezed the cup hard. The fact that the West wanted to build the ark did not hide it, and it soon spread to the East. This cannot be concealed, because as soon as the decision was released, there was a surge of opposition from the public. The space station project that everyone was looking forward to stopped and went to build the ark. Has the West decided to abandon their people? Or is it that they no longer resist the disaster, but let the disaster attack? What is this going to do? Why stop the space station program? How so? Why should we stop the space war program? Strong countries withdraw this order. This wrong decision will lead to the destruction of the Eagle Nation. Damn it. There was much discussion among the people, and this decision could not be changed. On June 15th, the West revised the ship previously built and officially named it the Ark. The resources originally invested in the space station were put on the Ark. At the same time, the Rose Kingdom was also launched. The Ark project point east, leader Ying. Look, the decision of the West was quickly spread to the east, and Zhao Guofeng took the information collected below to win midnight point. When Ying Ziyue saw the Ark plan, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but cocked. It seems that the West has made their most correct decision so far. Zhao Guofeng, leader Ying, what are you saying? Unfortunately, it's still too late. Ying Ziyue didn't answer Zhao Guofeng's words. He cast his gaze out of the window, and his gaze was unobstructed on the 100-meter high fence point as the ice covering the desert country in that Tsarist country was unsealed and turned into a king sun. Afterwards, the 7 oceans covering more areas also began to be unsealed. As time passed, it ended on July 1st. The ice surface of the 7 oceans has been disintegrating one after another. From the satellite, it is no longer an ice ball on the Earth. The broken ice surface is gradually replaced by seawater. The Earth seems to have returned to the civilization period point, but the rest of the countries know that when all the oceans are unblocked, an epic disaster will come. At the same time, on July 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the construction of the largest artificial island was completed. When the work was finally completed, Ying Ziyue showed up on this artificial island with an area of 1 million square meters and an area of about 1,500 acres to complete the ribbon cutting. On July 5th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, some residents of coastal cities moved in and settled on islands on this largest artificial island. All facilities are complete. The people don't need to worry. They continue to live and work as usual. No one is desperate. Everyone lives with confidence. Point on July 10th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the image captured by satellites showed that 3 of the 7 oceans had all been unblocked, and a piece of Wangyang, boundless. The Earth began to regain its former appearance. Point the average ice layer of the southern and northern glaciers of 4,800 meters has begun to decrease. But here, it is still the coldest place in the world, and the temperature is still more than 200 degrees below 0. On July 30th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the ocean covering Kawasaki country began to fall apart, and the country area next to Kawasaki country is the east, and at this moment, the east area is still white. September 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age. A new day. Point at the moment on the surface of the east, the snow country train still circumnavigated the country, as if it would never stop, penetrating the thick ice, splashing a snow mist, roaring like a giant beast, resounding in every area of the east. Point transport the materials to Ying City, and the snow country train will continue to travel to the next stop. Point after that, the blizzard chariot transports the materials to various communities and distributes them to the hands of various residents. This scene is also happening in other cities. Blizzard's chariot transports various materials and distributes them to various communities, and then distributes them to every household by the community. Point during the disaster period, everything went on in an orderly manner. The Blizzard chariot has become the most important means of transportation. It can not only carry materials, but also carry residents to various cities. Since the completion of construction, there has been no underground passage tunnel. Stopped. Point after coming out of the underground tunnel, a car drove towards the artificial island, and the airship flying in the sky also flew towards the artificial island. The airship also carried the materials needed by the artificial island. Point in the 7th year of the Ice Age, the Blizzard chariot completed its last mission on September 20th. Point on the last day of September in the 7th year of the Ice Age, the ocean in the eastern region began to disintegrate. Pieces of ice were quickly submerged by the sea. The tsunami that was previously frozen by the ice, and the huge waves set off, began to unblock. After the unblocking, bang with a sound, a huge wave was raised, ranging from tens of meters to hundreds of meters in height. Point residents living on artificial islands can hear the sound of huge waves unblocking, rumbling like thunder, with a sound from time to time. Point in everyone's hearts, they are not very excited at this moment, as if they have been used to it for a long time. They continue to work and live. Chapter 211. In everyone's hearts, they are not very excited at this moment, as if they have been used to it for a long time. They continue to work and live. Point it wasn't until October 10th, that a different sound appeared. Point starting from the Ocean Brigade, a giant ice-breaking aircraft carrier is followed by a new research and development aircraft carrier called the Dongfang Zimo, Dongfang Chao Niu, Dongfang Yinhu, etc. According to the name of the Zodiac, the developed aircraft carrier appeared. Point these aircraft carriers have been upgraded from ice-breaking aircraft carriers. No matter what, they are on top of the ice-breaking aircraft carriers. Their defense and disaster resistance capabilities surpass the ice-breaking aircraft carriers. Moreover, the space area inside an aircraft carrier is very vast. It can be called the largest aircraft carrier in the civilization period and the Ice Age. Each of them can carry 50,000 people. In the civilization period, it is known that the largest aircraft carrier can carry more than 5,000 people. This is not just a simple defense against disasters. The research and development of these aircraft carriers represents another step forward in technology for the East. Set off. The person in charge, Chen Ruming, shouted that he is Chen Ruhei's younger brother, who is in a high position and shoulders important responsibilities. The Chen family gave birth to 2 good sons and set an example for their descendants, and their parents are proud of them. Point in Chen Ruming's sight. The ice-breaking aircraft carrier was launched first, starting with the ice-breaking aircraft carrier number 1 launch. Since the triple disaster 3 or 4 years ago, the extreme cold has swept across the entire ocean and ice-breaking aircraft carriers have been almost shelved. Except for the removal of the Bihai warehouse and other ocean areas, the ice-breaking aircraft carriers have almost always stayed in the Ocean Brigade, becoming a beautiful part of the Ocean Brigade scenery. But only the people of the Ocean Brigade know that the icebreaker aircraft carriers, like them, are eager to fight. Now the time for them is finally here. With an order set off from the coastline of the Ocean Brigade, the number 1 ice-breaking aircraft carrier started rumbling, making a loud noise, and the seawater was surging, constantly beating the hull. The icebreaker carrier number 2 keep up with number 3, keep up with number 4. Each icebreaker aircraft carrier followed the previous one and set off, forming a spectacular scene. This was already amazing enough, but I didn't expect even more amazing things to come. Point newly developed aircraft carriers appeared, one after another, with a steel texture and icy black color. On the top of the hull, the fonts such as the Oriental Rat and the Ugly Cow were written, and then one after another it is too large, shocking and stunning. The hull rumbling sound, the seawater slaps on the hull, an epic picture feel rushing toward you. Chen Ruming watched all this infatuated. A sense of pride in being an Oriental spontaneously arises. Set off. He also set off and fight with the aircraft carrier on October 10th. The 7th year of the Ice Age. In an ordinary day during the Ice Age, everyone worked and lived in their own posts as 12 o'clock arrived. A live broadcast locked one of the news stations, and then everyone saw an amazing scene appear once that tsunami hit the steel wall of the continental barrier. Ice-breaking aircraft carriers appeared on the front line of resistance. They set off from the Ocean Brigade, appeared again, and appeared in the public's sight again. Point everyone could not help but re-examine the giant machinery that played a special role in the Ice Age. Point everyone still remembers that these ice-breaking aircraft carriers broke through the ocean ice, resisted the super tsunami, and made a major contribution to human survival. Now that everyone recalls, they can't help being excited, as if following the icebreaker aircraft carrier, everyone has returned to those years of battle. The enthusiasm in the hearts of the people of the East was aroused. They clenched their fists one by one, watching this scene, a spectacular scene, and then a new type of aircraft carrier appeared, a huge giant aircraft carrier, which can carry a space area of 50,000 people, is larger than a giant iceberg, and even more shocking, the Xihai, Ugly Cow, Yinhu, etc. The huge aircraft carrier fleet formed by the Chinese Zodiac, travel point wherever he went. All disasters gave way. It's really shocking. Is this a newly developed aircraft carrier in our country? Why is it so big? Just watching TV, I can't help but boil with blood. I really want to be a member of the RAT. Mom, when I grow up, I will also be a soldier and serve the motherland. On TV and before, everyone was talking about it. Everyone did not expect that the country has developed a new aircraft carrier, which is larger than the iceberg giant ship, and it is even more shocking. Zero fine flowers. The country's resource strength is too strong. As the people of the East, they are truly prosperous. Rumble a ship after another passed through different cities, especially coastal cities. Many people ignored the biting cold and ran to the fence to watch. The aircraft carrier in their eyes gradually enlarged, like a giant beast after another. The seawater is more than tens of feet high, and a new road has been opened up wherever it passes. The ice layer blocking the ice-breaking aircraft carriers and the new aircraft carriers shattered one after another, and then was swept away. Point bang bang bang, some intact ice surfaces, as the icebreaker aircraft carrier takes the lead. Soon all the ice cracks spread, click, click, and then burst. Xihai was on top of the last aircraft carrier. He was standing on the top of the aircraft carrier. His sight was higher than a 100-meter wall, and then he saw the green and savage seaweed growing all over the icebergs and glaciers, which became this icy land. The only greenery in the middle is dotted on this land of mountains and rivers. From a distance, a mood called hope emerges spontaneously. Xihai looked at the glacier barrier towering into the clouds in the distance, like a continental barrier steel wall, guarding this continent. The thick ice body was beaten by wind and rain, and the blizzard fell on the ice wall. It was stronger, harder, and more upright than the previous ones. Now it cannot be penetrated even with special machinery. Its resistance ability, the ability to withstand disasters, is constantly improving. This is the power of nature. It can destroy many countries, and at the same time, it can also be a boost point, and a solid ice wall like this is in front of every city, and then connected to become the third largest barrier wall to guard the continent. The first barrier wall is the mainland steel wall, the second is the separation wall protecting coastal cities, and the third is the glacier barrier. The wind was blowing, and the blizzard fell steadily. As of 23 o'clock in the evening, all aircraft carriers are in place, scattered around the key positions of the entire eastern continent. Solid guarding is on the front line. Death Chapter 212. On November 1st, the 7th year of the Ice Age, all oceans have been unblocked intermittently except for the glaciers in the north and south. Looking from the satellite, except for the location of the glaciers in the north and south, the entire Earth has once again returned to a blue water. This beautiful water blue planet seems to reappear the civilization period. When the West and East received photos from satellites, they surrounded the whole Earth and took many photos. Then everyone can see that most of the entire Earth area is occupied by the ocean, and many continents are covered by the ocean. There were many developed countries, the development of the celestial family, and the 3 ancient countries of the 4 ancient countries are all covered by the ocean. All covered by the ocean. On the Earth, the number of continents has gradually decreased, and more islands have appeared on the Earth. 22, and the only continent that remains almost intact is the eastern continent. Although the area has been declining repeatedly, the entire eastern continent is by far the most complete continent on Earth. The satellite lens is zoomed in, and the large and small islands are distributed around. This is the artificial island in the east, around dozens of artificial islands, the largest of which covers an area of 1 million square meters and an area of about 1,500 acres. An artificial island that can accommodate 1 million people is a spectacular and a miracle. In the civilization period, people would never have imagined that one day artificial islands will be on the stage of nature, and when the previous 3 disasters swept through, the artificial islands successfully resisted these 3 disasters because humans, including the West, pay too much attention to coastal and inland cities. They naturally ignore artificial islands in the process of the triple disaster. The floating slab foundation used in the artificial island played the most critical role. In the past few years, the artificial islands that have been rebuilt have upgraded the floating flat foundation materials, which are more adapted to the ocean than before, and more resistant to the impact of tsunamis. Everything is progressing. The East is not stopping. Without resources, it creates resources. Without environment, it creates an environment. It is not afraid of hardships and forge ahead. The West. When the West received photos from satellites, when they saw that the Earth was covered by a blue water, except for the glaciers in the north and south, it was always covered by a piece of white snow, and most of the other places were replaced by the ocean. Except for the East, there is almost no complete continent, almost all in the form of islands. This is all caused by the previous triple disasters. The global plates fell apart. The continuous earthquake lasted for more than an hour. causing the plates not only to split, but also to move. Except for the east, most of them are misplaced. The west hides underground. The Eagle Nation has only 5 bunkers, the Rose Nation has only 2 dungeons, and there are other small countries, almost negligible, or lingering. However, after 3 or 4 years of breathing, all countries have recovered 50 to 60% of their vitality, and everything is gradually on track. Before they could recover everything, a bigger disaster came again. Deputy Minister Mark looked at the photo in front of him and said, as the ocean is unblocked, a greater disaster will come. I don't know if the East can survive this time. The unblocking of the ocean indicates that a greater disaster is coming. Not just a tsunami or rising sea levels will drown everything in the previous ice block. The East still has a chance to survive on the surface, but if all the seals are unblocked, it will only be a matter of time before the East is flooded. Our country has been constantly strengthening and building underground castles to cope with the following disaster. Only underground castles are the safest. Yes, the discussion from everyone almost didn't mention the Ark. Although Roddy proposed to build the Ark, because the opposition was too loud, only 2 castles were invested in the construction of the Ark, and Rose Nation did not know what to think, and all their resources were invested. The Ark is under construction. Roddy could not help but snorted coldly as he listened to the discussion. His eyes looked east again, full of solemnity and a trace of despair mixed in. At this moment, Danfang Ying Ziyue's eyes are also looking to the west. The weather observation room on the 100-meter high fence is the most favorite place to stay in when midnight. Because in this place, he can see clearly everything in the distance underground, and at the same time, keep his mind clear. Blizzard chariots are leaving the city, transporting extremely important supplies in their vehicles, and blizzard chariots are constantly driving towards the underground glacier tunnel. At the same time, airships were launched from the airship center in Xihai City. On their airships, they also carried important materials, and their direction was the direction of the artificial island. At this moment, the icy surface around the artificial islands was almost unsealed, replaced by slices of Wangyang Sea. After they unsealed, they fell from a height, splashing waves of waves, and began to impact the steel wall of the mainland barrier. Bang bang bang. Everything is like a prelude to a huge disaster. The huge waves hit the mainland barrier and impacted the mainland barrier. The ice-breaking aircraft carrier and the new type of aircraft carrier have finally begun to play its role. The snow country train is still going around the country, transporting the materials it needs to various places. Everything. Danfang is still operating and will not stop until the last moment. Ying Ziyue stood at the 100 high meteorological observation room and heard Zhao Guofeng's report that all the 7 oceans were unblocked and the other oceans were almost unblocked. The earth was once again covered by a blue water, as if returning to the civilization period, but this unblocking also means that the original 5.5 frozen tsunami waves will return to the surface, and then will cause the sea level to rise, accompanied by other disasters, this time against the ocean. The resulting tsunami will hit the existing islands around the world, and the mainland. This is a severe test. Everyone had never expected that the ocean would be unsealed so quickly before. After all, this extreme weather is below zero, and the earth will stay in the ice age for a long time, but they did not expect. Except Ying Ziyue. When midnight did not speak, but looked out the window silently. In his eyes, the East continued to operate until the last moment. This is very in line with the style of the people of a big country. It will never stop until the last moment. Next, let us meet this disaster together. Ying Midnight's voice was calm as water, said. Chapter 213. On November 5th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the global ocean was completely unblocked except for the north and south glaciers. The endless blue is flooding the planet. Since the civilization period, the blue that has never been seen has shrouded this planet. At the same time, patches of island-like land dotted on the ocean and parts of the continent are suffering unprecedented disasters as the ocean continues to be unsealed, and finally completely unsealed. The currents of all the oceans, including the 7 oceans, begin to hit every continent, islands, and the sea level begins to rise. From the beginning, of the unsealed desert country, a piece of Wangjiangxi covering the desert country at this moment, began to set off huge waves. The huge waves, ranging from about 10 meters to 100 meters high, looked spectacular from a distance, as if they would never stop, one after another. With muffled noises here, the unsealed sea water began to rise at an extremely fast speed. And at the same time, a tsunami began to form. Remember the previous triple disaster, the second disaster, the tsunami? Its formation destroyed the struggling country. There are only 2 dungeons left in the Rose 02 country, and only 5 castles in the Eagle country. I don't know how many millions, and tens of millions of people died in that tsunami. It is too tragic. Speaking of the tsunami, people who are still alive have lingering fears, and become a nightmare, that they never want to experience. I also hope that this nightmare will never be experienced, but the nightmare is far from stopping. Not only the sea area covering the desert country, but also the sea area of the neighboring Tsaris country. The sea level is rising at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the huge waves of the tsunami from 10 meters to 100 height began to rise, sending out bursts of gate thunders. The sound, roaring, galloping, rushing around. In these sea areas, after a few years, a trace of the ecological environment has just been restored. With the unblocking, the disaster has begun again. The ecological environment began to withstand the test in the huge waves, formed step by step. The only fish in the ocean, drifted with the waves in these waves, and suffered destructive and devastating blows step by step. At the same time, the North Sea warehouse gathers many fish from all over the world, and the ecological environment surpasses the whole world. A complete system is concentrated in a small North Sea warehouse. That fish here seems to be inexhaustible. The oxygen here has become the region with the highest oxygen concentration in the world. Here, there is a vibrant posture, which is in sharp contrast with other regions. Bang bang bang. Not only the desert country, but also the Tsaris country. Other regions have also begun to set off huge waves after the release of the seal, and the sea level is rising rapidly. An unnamed island was submerged in only 10 minutes. Then, the sea continued to hit the next island, the land, and it was also decreasing step by step. Some buildings from the civilization period that were originally frozen in the sea level rose after the sea was unsealed, and the last point was also submerged by the sea. A piece of sea blue is still a piece of sea blue. The whole world, since it was unblocked, began to swallow everything at an extremely rapid rate. The ocean is like a shark with a big mouth, swallowing islands and continents. Kawasaki country. Since entering the Ice Age, various countries have begun to perish in disasters, and Kawasaki is no exception. The surrounding area of Kawasaki is surrounded by the ocean, and the area was originally small. After experiencing the triple disaster, only the last island is left, which has already squeezed out all living countries, because its demise is only a matter of time. And now, the last moment has finally arrived. The newly appointed Minister Yamei was sitting in the conference room. He had a cup of tea that had already been served, but had cooled down. He paused and slowly, then raised the teacup, just about to drink, but the door was blocked open. While the deputy minister rushed in, there was a scream of noise and screams, and so on. Minister, go quickly. If you don't leave, it will be too late, the deputy minister said anxiously. Go. Minister Shanjing shook his head, and then slowly drank the tea. The coolness in his stomach invaded his body, like his heart at the moment, completely cold. What's the response from the Eagle State? It turned out that when the sea began to be unsealed, the oceanographers of Kawasaki country proposed that the sea unsealing would cause the sea level to rise and cause great damage, and then Yamei ordered people to ask the Eagle country for help, hoping to cooperate with them. The countries of the space station can help them through the current difficulties together, but I didn't expect that the Eagle nation could not protect itself at this moment, and had already given up on them. The deputy minister said, the Eagle nation let us ask for our own blessings, and the East when Kawasaki again asked the Eagle country for help. He also asked Dongfang for help, but unexpectedly, Dongfang didn't even respond at all. As if expected. Minister Yamei smiled. Then, he stood up, walked out of the conference room, and faced a biting chill on his face. The sub-degree weather swallowed everything in the world, and Shanjing shivered, and then continued to walk forward. Wherever he passed, screams and screams continued to sound. In the coming tsunami, human nature was fully displayed at this moment. Finally, Minister Yamei came to the highest point of the island. By his side, he was also crowded with the people of Kawasaki country who wanted to survive. 223 In the eyes of Minister Shanjing, some ships were robbed, and everyone couldn't wait to leave here. Minister Shanjing did not leave, but watched all this in a calm mood. In the rest of the wait, time passed very slowly, and at the same time, it was very fast. In the eyes of Minister Yamei, the overlapping sea water finally came to the island, step by step from all directions. It was submerged step by step. This is only a scene that happened in the special effects movie. When it really happened in front of your eyes, the face came to your face. In the sea, you can't afford to escape. Escape. Where can you escape? In sub-zero weather, leaving the island and floating on the sea is just a dead end, and that way of death is even more cruel than it is now. On November 6th, the 7th year, the Kawasaki country completely disappeared, and even the last island no longer existed. Kawasaki country completely disappeared on the earth. Minister Yamei and his people were finally buried in the sea. A generation of developed countries eventually ended. As the Kawasaki country's signal disappeared, its satellite also lost contact with the land surface. Then, it began to float in space, and the last Kawasaki nation inside was desperately waiting for death. Chapter 214. At this moment in the West, when the satellite images received saw that the last island of the Kawasaki country completely disappeared, all the senior officials of the Eagle country were silent. As Roddy opened his mouth, he put his hand on his chest, then bowed, paying tribute to the country that once worked together. The same goes for the high-level people behind him. Then, Roddy straightened up and turned around. His eyes flicking across the faces of the high-ranking officers present, Roddy opened the mouth and said, "Now, it's time to announce it to everyone. Let all the people know what they will face next, and at the same time, a new era has arrived. The age of the ocean has come." As Roddy's voice fell, the whole room was silent, and everyone's faces were full of dignity. In the next minute, Roddy's video and articles spread throughout the West. A new era, the age of the ocean, has come. In the face of the following disasters, I hope that all people can unite and tide over the difficulties together. The national ark is ready, and all underground castles have been reinforced. I believe we will be able to survive this disaster. Roddy's voice brought infinite confidence to the people of Eagle Nation. I believe our country will definitely survive this disaster. Tina, yes, although I think that this disaster can only be overcome by continuously strengthening the castle, but this step has been reached. I hope the country can extract more resources to continue to strengthen the castle. John, the new era is coming. Our underground castle is the safest place. Jack. While talking about Roddy's speech in the West, the East also received the news that the last island of Kawasaki Kingdom disappeared and was completely destroyed. Zhao Guofeng's face was expressionless when he reported the incident, and the other people on the scene did the same. They refused to cooperate with the Eagle Nation. Then, they would not accept Kawasaki Nation's call for help. Everyone has not forgotten what happened in the civilization period. Ying Ziyue was facing the window, and others couldn't see the expression on his face. After a pause of about a minute, the atmosphere in the room became active again with Ying Ziyue's opening. Have all the preparations been done? Back to the team leader. All preparations are done, Zhao Guofeng said. His voice was trembling, because Zhao Guofeng knew what they would face next. Okay, so how is the development of anti-cold drugs? Where is the space engine in the maritime age that has come? When Midnight continues to command and has not stopped any steps because of the upcoming disaster. When the people of the East saw new news on a new day, they all boiled. Ocean Age, very excited to think about it. On November 6th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, during the previous 7 years, we experienced various disasters, such as extreme cold, tsunamis, earthquakes, etc., and various disasters swept the entire Earth. The whole East, as each country disappears on the surface forever. Only we in the East are still standing on the surface. This is true yesterday, so is today, and even more so in the future. And all of this is because we have the blood of Yan and Huang. We are united, and we are united, everyone. Thank you very much for your efforts. And now, I announce that with the unblocking of the ocean, a new era has come, and this era is the Ocean Age. The disaster that will happen next, let us spend it together, with the release of a passionate remark. It set off a huge wave in the East Point. While the only remaining countries are still thinking about how to survive, the East is ready, and is waiting very much for the disaster of the Ocean Age. Point. All the people are looking forward to it very much. Point. The Ice Age is November 7th. Point. The global sea level continues to rise, and a disaster that overwhelms the only remaining countries in the world has officially begun. Point. At this moment, around the steel wall of the continental barrier in the east, the seawater after the unsealing is hitting the steel wall of the continental barrier one after another. The sea level has risen, and it has reached a distance of about 30 meters from the mainland steel barrier. At this moment, a huge tsunami is brewing in other ocean areas. The disaster situation has already been revealed, with waves rising from a dozen meters to a height of 100 meters. As the 100-meter high waves are formed, larger waves gather and move in the same direction. As it rushed in, the power of the seawater was endless, beating, heavy and heavy, making a sound that shook the sky. Point. The light time remains the same as before, neither shortened nor extended. During the day, when the sky is brightest, it is around 12 noon. Today, the sun is blocked, the whole sky is dark and dust free, and the cold wind is blowing. At the same time, the blizzard fell steadily, merged into the sea, and soon disappeared. Point. Satellite photography shows that the whole earth is like being thrown into a stone, and waves of ripples spread towards the surroundings. Waves and waves. As time goes by, the waves that have risen have reached a height of about 200 meters, which is like a 60-story tall building in summer. Which is shocking. Point. But no one can appreciate this scene. The 200-meter tsunami made it too late for everyone to escape. Point. The magnificent scenes must be appreciated by life. Point. Facing the tsunami formed by nature, all people have only surrender, fear, and trembling in their hearts. Bang bang bang. Waves of rising sea levels hit the steel barriers of the continent, making a sound that shook the sky, and everything was brewing. Point. The 4,000-kilometer, good enough, continental barrier steel wall firmly guards this continent. Point. On the sea, artificial islands float around the eastern sea area, forming a beautiful landscape at this moment. Point. As the sea level rises, the artificial islands floating on the sea feel the power from the ocean. Point. At this time, the floating slab surface foundation played a key role, and the artificial island could not be submerged, even if the sea level rose. Point. The residents on the artificial island at this moment only feel the slightest fluctuations, but they have no other feelings. Residents closest to the edge of the artificial island can hear the sound of huge waves, bang, whistle, the sound of splashing and lifting. Point. Residents closest to the artificial island can even see the huge waves that rise up to several tens of meters, like a fountain. But everyone knows that this is not a fountain enough to crush a city. Chapter 215. Bang bang bang. In the inland city, everything is as usual. Point. The scorching blast furnace emits heat, and then it spreads to every residential building, and the steam spreads along the pipes, warming every residential building. Point. The pipes clinging to the residential buildings surround the residential buildings, just like the city of mechanical technology. It is very magical. Point. The wind turbine has not stopped for a moment. It has been rotating continuously, and the electric energy it generates is continuously transmitted. It involves not only every residential building, but also every lighthouse in the lighthouse city, and outside the city. The lighthouses in the city, the lighthouses in the underground passage, and the lighthouses on the coastline. All the machinery that requires electrical energy is provided by wind turbines. When the extreme cold comes, all the solar panels emit light, and the 4,000-kilometer continental barrier forms a spectacular scene, and the shocking scene is all provided by wind turbines. The snow country train still runs around the city, surrounding the entire East Point. Every blizzard chariot drove on the streets of inland cities, as if everything were not disturbed in any way. Point. Everything is still going on in an orderly manner in the inland cities. The seaweed scattered on the iceberg glaciers is full of vitality, lush and prosperous. Open on this continent. Point. Then a figure appeared, gnawing green seaweed. This is a goat. Unlike the goats in the civilization period, it has evolved a thick fur on its body, almost dragging to the ground, and at the same time its horns are bent again. It is long and very aggressive. As it moves, footprints are deeply imprinted in the snow, and behind it, a pair of eye-catching eyes is staring at him. Natural selection. Survival of the fittest. Everything constitutes a biological chain. In this ice world, everything is going on as if nothing happened. On the periphery of the steel wall of the continental barrier, everything has become more violent since the announcement of entering the ocean age. The sea level has risen rapidly, and many islands have been submerged. The former developed country Kawasaki has completely disappeared, and there are other only remaining countries. Because of the rising sea level, there is nowhere to escape. Surrounded by seawater, there is no escape at all. The depth of each sea area is different. During the civilization period, the deepest known sea area reached 11 kilometers. At the deepest point, the water pressure was high, the total darkness was low, the oxygen was low, and food was scarce. The deepest point can reach 25 kilometers, which is a terrifying number. Humans, including the East, have not yet researched a submarine that can dive to a depth of 25 kilometers, and once humans are involved in the sea, even those who are good at water, without cold protection measures, it can't last for 3 seconds. With cold protection measures, it is impossible to dive too deep. The current ecological environment is all being rebuilt, and humans need time to slowly adapt. Bang, huge waves hit the steel wall once again. At this moment, the water level rose to about 35 meters. The huge waves raised outside the continental barrier can reach about 50 meters to 100 meters. As time goes by, the waves rise more and more high. Wave after wave slap the mainland steel barrier, becoming more and more fierce. The 4,000-kilometer barrier wall built around the mainland blocked the impact of that tsunami, and the ice-breaking aircraft carriers and new aircraft carriers scattered in key locations finally played its role. These aircraft carriers have really been waiting for a long time. At this moment, they are rushing to the first line and are arranged in the key area. The waves here are as high as 100 meters to 200 meters, which is equivalent to 40 stories high. The huge wave set off can smash a tall building facing the sea. Bang bang bang. The confrontation at this moment is not only the confrontation between the aircraft carrier and the huge tsunami waves, but also the confrontation between Eastern forces and nature. Whether it is a country that has disappeared or a country that is still alive, it will never be expected that one day there will be a country like this that is not thinking about how to escape, but thinking about how to confront, and continue to confront. Since the Ice Age has not yet begun, it will do its best to fight. It was only through personal experience that I knew how terrifying the 200-meter tsunami wave was. The soldiers of the Ocean Brigade driving one of the aircraft carriers saw the huge wave that set off. His expression of astonishment fixed on his face. "Are you afraid?" Suddenly a hand was slapped heavily on his shoulder, and the young soldier suddenly recovered. Back to the captain. "No," the young soldier said. He said so, but his body couldn't help shaking, because this was his first time on the battlefield. Unexpectedly, only by personal experience can I better appreciate the horror from nature, and from the tsunami, almost swallowing everything, in taking part in this operation. Everyone has made a life and death status, as well as last words. The young soldier not only knows, he is obliged to do this again. Because it is time to serve the country. Bang. Bang bang. The ice-breaking aircraft carrier launched and made rumbling sounds. Soon these sounds were covered by the impact of the waves. The 200-meter high wave hit and was blocked by the ice-breaking aircraft carrier. This amazing scene was transmitted to the inner city and every TV in the coastal city. At this time, the people discovered that the aircraft carrier they had forgotten was braving the wind and breaking the waves, almost cutting off the huge waves that were nearly 200 meters high in front of them. At the same time, what is even more amazing is the new aircraft carriers, which are larger than the aircraft carriers of the known civilization period and the giant iceberg ships of the civilization period. They appear like huge waves that can almost match the current moment. The names of each ship on it are as follows. The rat is looming in the waves. The research of a new type of aircraft carrier is better than that of an icebreaker in terms of resisting disasters. It cuts the water flow like a wide blade, diverges the water, and relieves a lot of pressure on the rear riding the wind and waves. Facing the chase, the steel black is shining with pitch black light. As the camera zooms in, you can hear a muffled sound and roar like a giant beast point constantly resisting and resisting, forming a spectacular and stunning scene point. And this scene is not just happening in one place. At this moment, the East is surrounded by ocean. The eastern continent is surrounded by an endless ocean, and waves of waves are constantly hitting the steel wall of the continental barrier. If it were not for the steel wall of the mainland barrier, it would be only a matter of time before the coastal cities were washed down. The resistance of the ice-breaking aircraft carrier and the new type aircraft carrier was scattered in important positions everywhere, preventing the further collision of the tsunami. This scene was unfolding around the eastern continent. Chapter 216. On November 8th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, 2 days have passed since the Ocean Age was announced. Since the announcement of the Ocean Age, the world has begun to fall into a crisis of disaster after the ocean was unsealed. The sea level rose rapidly and quickly submerged islands scattered around the world. Some islands disappeared permanently in a piece of Huanggang Sea, and then a tsunami gradually formed. This is different from the triple disasters of previous years. What everyone will face next will be a continuous tsunami, which will continue to hit every inch of the continent and every island on the earth. It will not be possible to stop until they are completely submerged. A disaster crisis has come to the world, and no one can escape it. The Eagle Nation and Rose Nation hiding in the underground castles and dungeons did not come to the surface in person, and you could feel a dangerous aura gradually approaching their continent. In the pictures received from their satellites, the spread of the ocean is gradually approaching their continent, and a tsunami is also brewing. Rodder's face was solemn. He didn't speak, or any language at the moment, was pale and weak. After about a while, Roddy let out a suffocating breath, and he asked, "How about the eastern side?" At the same time, Rose Country also asked. They are by far the country with the largest population other than the East, and it is also a country with surviving resource strength in addition to the East. In the previous comparison of major power projects, the East was compared with their projects. They originally thought that the East would eventually disappear on the surface, because no one can survive one disaster after another, let alone 180 degrees below the surface, which can freeze everything. But I didn't expect that the East would far win this great power project comparison era by surpassing many steps. At this moment, the project of the East is facing a severe test again. Can it pass this time? The senior leaders of the West look dignified, and at the same time they look to the East. Everyone is in a complicated mood and has many thoughts. Bang bang bang, the world announced the Ocean Age. 2 days have passed. During these 2 days, the East is still proceeding in accordance with the original order, and everything is in order at this moment. The steel wall of the continental barrier standing on the periphery of the East is undergoing severe tests. Its establishment blocked the impact of the tsunami and prevented the extreme cold from sweeping. It is known as the greatest project of the Ice Age. The Continental Barrier Iron Wall is the only project that can be compared to the Great Wall because its effect is so great. The steel wall of the mainland barrier is the first line, 4,000 kilometers long, like a long dragon covering the entire East. At this moment, the sea level has risen to 40 meters. The sea is turbulent and waves are set off. At this moment, it has reached about 100 meters. The huge waves slammed against the steel wall and soon rushed into the steel wall of the mainland barrier. When the sea water flows into the steel wall, it is blocked by the separation wall of the coastal city. As one of the barriers of coastal cities, the separation wall plays an important role. Underground diversion pipes are set under the wall to disperse the water flow and wash away a lot of pressure on the separation wall. Bang bang bang. There was a terrible tremor. At this moment, at the periphery of the steel barrier of the mainland, there were waves after another, almost swallowing everything. As if the end of the world is coming, a huge wave is set off, without a moment of stopping. Wave after wave is slapped against the wall of steel. Fierce. At the same time, the aircraft carriers scattered in some key positions of the steel wall of the mainland barrier are also fighting against the huge waves. The world changed color, and the blizzard fell. Soon, the night came, and the moment all the lighthouses lighted up, the east looked like a star map point. The aircraft carrier confronting the sea also lit up. In the majestic and huge waves, the light at this point was a little trivial, but in the eyes of everyone in the east, and in the eyes of everyone driving the aircraft carrier in the same direction, it means that they are constantly facing each other, carrying huge waves and tsunami, and, still a live point from day to night, until November 9th, all the signals of the new aircraft carrier, including the ice-breaking aircraft carrier, were on, and none of them were damaged in the confrontation with the waves. This is really good news, because it represents the first victory in the confrontation between the east and nature point. Everyone did not shrink back, did not have any fear, and faced the disaster courageously point. But what happened next was even more fierce. As the waves of the tsunami hit one after another, the sea level rose again, rising to about 50 meters. Zero fine flowers. The huge tsunami waves did not break down the steel walls of the mainland barrier, but the rising water levels threatened coastal cities, and the huge waves raised were all 200 meters high on average point. The majestic waves are set off, forming a spectacular and stunning side point at the same time. It is very frightening, because when people experience and watch this scene in person, they can't raise any thoughts of resistance at all. The impact of the tsunami wave caused the air temperature to drop suddenly. At this moment, the air around the coastal city has reached -190 degrees. This is all caused by the impact of the tsunami wave. The weather is extremely cold. As time goes by, even the inland cities felt that the weather was getting colder, and the air was moist and cold, deep into the bones. Ying Ziyue was standing at a weather observatory with a wall of 100 meters away. He looked outside, as if he could see coastal cities all at once, and saw the steel wall of the continental barrier, which was trying his best to withstand the huge waves and tsunami shock. But because it is too fierce, because this is a global unblocking, all the frozen seas are released, and facing all the mainland islands will be a strong impact. Leader of the report, the sea level of the steel wall of the mainland barrier has risen to about 55 meters. The sea level of the separation wall has reached about 40 meters, and the waves can reach up to about 200 meters. If it continues, the sea level facing coastal cities will be the same, an unimaginable disaster. Look at the severity of the disaster has surpassed everyone's imagination, and Zhao Guofeng, who was originally full of trust, is also worried at this moment. Ying Ziyue nodded and said, "I see." Then Ying Ziyue continued to face the window, standing from day to night, from night to day, outside airships flying around, blizzard chariot driving the sky from dark to bright. The temperature is still -degrees, freezing cold. Then, Ying Ziyue opened his mouth and said, "Start implementing the next plan." On November 11th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the second unprecedented migration began again. And this time everyone seemed ready, and the moment they received the order, everyone started to act. Death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217. Squeak. The highest alarm rang again. This is the second time the alarm, that only sounded in the face of triple disasters, has sounded. A sense of crisis arises from every 80-year-old man to 3-year-old child. Since the birth of the newborn during the Ice Age, parents have popularized all the knowledge of the Ice Age and the severity of the Ice Age to the children. Therefore, since childhood, the sense of crisis has been deeply rooted in the hearts of children born during the Ice Age. At this time, everyone took action. All people in the inland cities and coastal cities are taking action. Especially in coastal cities, when the highest alarm sounded, an order began to be issued. All migration. On November 11th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the second unprecedented migration started from coastal cities on February 27th. At this moment, the sea level of the barrier steel wall guarding the eastern continent has risen to 55 meters, and the sea level of the separation wall guarding the coastal cities has reached 40 meters. The huge waves have risen up to 200 meters high, and the subsequent forces have become more and more fierce. knowing when this continuous tsunami can stop. Maybe the east will eventually be submerged, or it may still stand on the surface. The world has entered the ocean age, and the era of ocean civilization will follow. And behind the separation wall is the third barrier, the glacier barrier, built around each city. It is the third line of defense to guard the east besides the mainland barrier steel wall and the separation wall. It is built around the entire eastern city, 100 meters high, and its thickness increases with the wind and snow. And it is no longer known how many meters thickened. It stands solidly on the ground, towering in the snow and fog. The glacier barrier is the last barrier of coastal cities. In order to prevent the subsequent disaster from overwhelming the coastal cities, an order has been issued within the coastal cities since November 1st. Everyone is preparing to evacuate at any time, since today. So everyone prepared for this moment, and this moment finally arrived. Beijing. When the alarm went off, no matter what they were doing, everyone put down their work and prepared. The alarm sounded at 12 o'clock on November 11th, and everything was ready at 12:45, and then walked out of the house. The streets are full of people, coming from every community. There are old men and children, both men and women. They are not making noise or complaining. They all waited in an orderly manner. "Mom, where are we going?" or 3-year-old child asked. His big eyes are full of innocence, and he still doesn't know what he will face next. The mother grabbed the child's little hand, carried the luggage in her right hand, and smiled. We are going to a place that can protect us." At 13:30, there was a rumbling sound in the city. The blizzard chariot from the inland city arrived. If it takes half a day or several days of work in normal times, because of the underground passage construction, the time is greatly shortened, and the chance of survival is also greatly improved. After the two parties hand over, start boarding, take each community and each building as a unit, and arrange for the disadvantaged groups to go first. This is the case in any period. All the people are highly cooperative, and the time has been shortened again invisibly. This country has always been like this, otherwise there will not be many projects. Since the Ice Age, everyone's hearts have been highly cohesive, because everyone knows that only unity can survive all kinds of disasters. This scene is not only happening in Beijing, but also in other coastal cities except for a few large cities that are the first to hit when the disaster strikes. They have already moved. The place where they moved was an artificial island. At the moment, people and factories in a city are stationed on the largest artificial island. All plans are carried out in an orderly manner. Several large cities have long become empty cities. Empty inside, only the green seaweed still exudes vitality. Set off, as the headed person waved. The blizzard chariot headed out first. Rumble made a loud noise, and then drove away slowly. The car behind also started and drove away. Drive in a long queue on the street, and then drive out of the city. At the same time, there are airships flying above the sky. They are parked in the airship center of the coastal city. The people here have just arrived at the airship center, and airships from other cities have arrived. They come for aid. Every inland city connects to a coastal city, and every inland city participates, taking people from coastal cities away. A magnificent picture is formed under the sky. People in coastal cities are driving away from their familiar homes. An unprecedented second migration begins again. Seen from a high altitude, rows of blizzard tanks are driving in the icy and snowy ground. The first blizzard tanks are all hung with banners that say which city, such as assistance from Yanjing, are written on the banners, with Yanjing number 001 to help. The same is true for other cities. At the same time, the airships all moved out in the sky. Looking from the surrounding wall, the airships were flying in the clouds and fog, and the military green color was looming, as if spaceships appeared. This scene was really spectacular. The airship can fly at a minimum of 200 meters, which is also the highest height of the current tsunami waves. When passing the separation wall, you can clearly feel that the tip of the wave almost touches the airship. At the moment, the airship is 300 meters high. Everyone's feeling is just an illusion. It was because I was shocked by the scene in front of me. When I experienced that tsunami first, and all my optimism and courage disappeared. As a member of Beijing, Li Yang, known as Li Bold, sat on the airship and approached the window. He could clearly see the scene from below. Although blocked by snow and fog, the outline of the buildings below was very clear, especially 100. The glacial barrier, the separation wall, and the steel wall of the continental barrier. Everything became clear as the airship rose. It was the first time that Li Yang took the airship and watched everything. Was amazed. This feeling was different from watching TV. This time he experienced it personally. Then Li Yang saw waves of monstrous waves being lifted, the height of which was about 200 meters. But in Li Yang's eyes, it seemed that the airship they were riding was about to be lifted off in the next second. Li Yang's face was earthy and trembling all over the sound of bang, 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 bang after bang, and Li Yang saw the huge waves crashing through the window, beating the steel wall of the mainland barrier, the separation wall and other projects, as if the next second to destroy them, wash them down. This scene was deeply imprinted in Li Yang's mind, and now he finally knew why it wanted them to evacuate. Chapter 218. On November 12th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, as of 12 o'clock, the evacuation of all coastal cities was completed. The blizzard chariots from the coastal cities, the airships in the sky, converge into a torrent, all moving in one direction, that is, the inland city. The blizzard chariot drove out of Beijing and rushed directly to the underground passage. Every coastal city did. After coming out of the city, it entered the underground passage. After entering the passage, the vast world came into view. The ice blue vault was dreamlike, and the space was so large that it could accommodate dozens of blizzard chariots. The ground was smooth and glowing like ice crystals. Know how many blizzard tanks and icebergs are all over rumble. The underground glacier passage is busy again, and there is a continuous flow in every corridor. Vehicles carrying people from coastal cities and their homes are driving towards the city they are going to. The inland cities have long been ready for their arrival. When the first airship arrived, it only took 3 hours from the evacuation to the airship to reach the destination. Welcome to Yanjing 02. Bang bang bang. On November 13th, the 7th year of the Ice Age. Just after the early morning hours, the sea level rose again. The water level of the steel wall surrounding the entire continent has reached 60 meters, and the sea level guarding the coastal city in front of the isolation wall has reached 50 meters. From left to right, the huge waves that have set off have reached a height of 300 meters, and the sea water has surpassed the steel wall and the separation wall. The speed of the sea is extremely fast. The sea surrounding the entire continent spreads from all directions. Among them, the ice-breaking aircraft carrier and the new type aircraft carrier are still fighting against each other. The darkness is shining with faint light, ups and downs, from night to morning. Soon, the first wave of seawater came to the iceberg barrier. The majestic iceberg barrier stands up to the sky, about 100 meters high, and as long as a mainland steel barrier. It is the third line of defense to guard the east. Now it is finally in handy. Before the construction of the glacier barrier, the slander and ridicule from the west all felt that the iceberg barrier was vulnerable and it was better to recuperate than to spend engineering labor. Now, it is finally time for verification. Boom. When the first wave of seawater hit the glacier barrier, it was just a small splash of water, without any impact. The glacier barrier stands majestic above the surface. Bang. When the second wave of seawater arrived, it was still the same. The same is true for the third wave. So is the fourth wave. After about half a day, the glacier barrier, that was ridiculed by Westerners, was not damaged in any way, standing like a giant on the surface. Outside the iceberg barrier is Zhihai, and inside the iceberg barrier is a coastal city, but now it has become an empty city. The West has no guarantee for themselves. They will not notice the East. When that tsunami comes, the East has already caused an evacuation in an orderly manner, and they will not know that the glacier barrier is the third line of defense. As the most important line of defense at the moment, it plays the most important role. The huge waves have surpassed the continental barrier and the separation wall, and more water has gathered on the glacier barrier. At the same time, it is also brewing. When the first wave of 50 meters in height hits the glacier barrier, it is responsible. The reporter playing here in real time followed with a fierce heartbeat. Bang. Huge sound hit the glacier barrier, like a thunder, exploded. If the people in the coastal cities have not evacuated, they will definitely hear it. This voice is shuddering and trembling. The glacier barrier does not stand, but is more solid. In addition to being made of iceberg glaciers, it also uses special materials to prevent the glacier from melting due to the invasion of seawater. It now appears to be at -180 in the case of high temperature. When the seawater hits the glacier, the barrier is rapidly freezing and strengthening. It was too shocking. Everyone did not expect that the glacier barrier could really resist it. This scene was magnificent. Boom. Then the second wave of huge waves arrived. The third wave followed, hitting the iceberg barrier. Because there are the first two lines of defense to block the waves, the iceberg barrier only needs to deal with a tsunami that loses 70% to 80% of its threat. But even so, it is enough to make people scared. When everyone watched the tsunami hit the glacier barrier, the iceberg barrier stood firm. Everyone felt that the hard work at the time was really worth it. It is undeniable that the most difficult project of the Glacier Barrier project, because the construction of this super project requires full exposure at -180 degrees, and the temperature of -180 degrees requires 10 hours of work, which is a test of people's spirit, and will point to mention it. I can't bear to look back, but at the same time I'm proud, because today's great project has blocked the impact of that tsunami. Everything is worth it. At this time, behind the glacier barrier, there were still people who did not evacuate. Chen Ruming, the person in charge of leading the team this time, was the last to evacuate. Before evacuating, he took people to patrol every city, holding a big loudspeaker in his hand, putting it in the loudest voice, and shouting. He was afraid that someone would be left behind before he could escape, and his responsibility was not to leave any people behind. Bring all people to a safe area. On November 14th, Chen Ruming finished patrolling the last city and then began to evacuate. Originally, he wanted to leave in a blizzard chariot to save resources for the country, but Chen Ruming was asked to take an airship, so he took someone to leave in an airship. When the airship took off, he glanced at the city again. Since the Ice Age, the city has been involved in frantic construction. Wind turbines, hot blast furnaces, and steam pipes have all been invested in all the construction that can be thought of in response to the Ice Age. This city contains too many people. Hard work. Every city has a home. Everyone left their hometown and came to a city that they didn't belong to. After 7 years of development, they finally got used to it, and now it's time to leave. Really reluctant, the city in Chen Ruming's eyes gradually disappeared. As the airship rises, only a silhouette is left. Then Chen Ruming saw that the iceberg barrier was blocking waves of incoming seawater. The separation wall, the continental barrier, etc. were all playing. Working. That tsunami was too violent, and the huge wave that it set off had reached 300 meters, as if it would never stop, hitting the continent. Chapter 219. On November 16th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, a global tsunami continued to hit every continent and island. 10 days have passed since the announcement of the Ocean Age. In these 10 days, all countries are undergoing severe tests on the surface of the West at this moment. The sea is turbulent and rushing above the ground. The huge waves that are set off are about 200 meters high, which is comparable to high-rise buildings, and it is very spectacular. And on the islands, where the sea is not invaded, under the land, the Rose Kingdom hides in the underground city, and the Eagle Kingdom hides in the underground castle. If they listen carefully, they can hear the roar of the tsunami. Then, when the sea gradually starts to invade the surface, I felt a dull force rushing from the top of my head. Everyone is pressed against a big rock, and the heavy dungeons and underground castles are extremely depressed in the environmental protection environment. Fortunately, their castle and underground city are very strong, and everyone is fortunate. Bang bang bang. Minister Roddy is at the highest level of the castle and the closest to the ground. He can clearly hear the sound of the tsunami bombarding people's cochlea step by step. If there is a hole above the head, the huge water flooding will immediately destroy the castle. At this moment Roddy is most worried. He is the closest to death, and he feels death is approaching step by step above his head. His mood is very complicated. Of course Roddy is also afraid of death, but his responsibility as a leader of a major power has prompted him to stand here. After a long time, Roddy turned his head and asked, "How is the surface situation now?" The secretary knew what Roddy wanted to ask. So he took out a video and handed it to Roddy. Roddy took it, then clicked on. Bang bang bang. What you see is the huge roaring waves, one after another, before reaching the eastern continent, blocked by the continental barrier. At this moment, the entire 4,000 kilometers of the continental barrier is immersed in the sea. Although the sea level as it rose, most of the barrier was submerged, but the project in the east stood firm, surrounding the entire continent and guarding the entire east. The sea water is constantly beating against the steel wall, and the huge waves that have been set off have reached about a meter, comparable to a tall building in the summer. After the water jumps in, it hits the isolation wall of the coastal city, and each isolation wall is solidly guarded. In the same place, let the sea water beat and impact. However, the height of the waves raised is too high. It has already exceeded the scope of the separation wall. The separation wall has also been submerged for most of the time. The sea water jumped into the separation wall and headed towards the coastal city. The endless ocean gradually spread across the east. Because the east is the most intact continent so far, this scene is very spectacular from the satellite. As Westerners really think the east can survive the previous few years, but with the advent of the ocean age, being submerged is only a matter of time. Now the real disaster in the east has arrived. The east standing on the surface. If the oceans invade all the people, then no one in the east will be able to survive. Then Roddy saw the emergence of the third line of defense, the glacier barrier. This barrier built around each city was ridiculed by the West when it was first built, and even Roddy believed that this glacier could not stop disaster at all. Then Roddy saw that the glacier barrier that guarded all the cities was like a soldier with the strongest will, standing in the ocean of Huangyang. Let Huangyang hit the sea, and the glacier barrier stands in place in the clouds and mist. Behind the glacier barrier is the coastal city. There is a sharp contrast between the inside and outside of the glacier barrier, and the coastal cities are quiet. It seems that no one is worried that the sea will break down the glacier barrier and eventually flood the coastal cities. Unexpectedly, the glacier project in the east could really withstand that tsunami. Roddy said to himself. This is really shocking. According to Roddy's understanding of glacial icebergs, as long as they have enough water, they can melt. How can this iceberg barrier be able to withstand the impact of a tsunami? But Roddy ignored two issues. One is the weather at -180 degrees at the moment. The glacier freezes rapidly when it encounters the impact of water. At the same time, the materials used to build the glacier also make the glacier barrier last 10 days. Still standing amidst the impact of the tsunami. Then the camera changed, not only in the confrontation between the continental barrier and the glacial barrier, but also the numerous projects in the east. The ice-breaking aircraft carrier and the new type aircraft carrier did not flinch in the face of the waves, and the huge wave that was set off has reached 300 meters. With every impact, the ice-breaking aircraft carrier and the new type aircraft carrier are like the same boats drifting in the ocean. It is shocking at the same time. It's also awe-inspiring. Near the ice-breaking aircraft carrier is the sea crossing bridge. After 3 disasters, the sea crossing bridge stood firm. After being renovated, it was fully accessible. It straddled the 3 large seas and was very majestic. At this moment, it is facing the impact of the huge waves, and the sea crossing bridge makes a dull sound in the rain and fog. The middle is looming, welcoming the impact of the waves project in the east. Roddy couldn't say anything. 10 days have passed. The east is still standing on the surface, and all the projects are facing the tsunami waves. Among these projects, the most spectacular and surprising is the artificial island. When everyone is thinking about how to survive, everyone can't wait to leave the island and evacuate it to the mainland. And the east has built an unknown number of islands scattered throughout the east. If Roddy observes carefully at this time, he will definitely find a strange phenomenon. Seen from the satellite, the islands scattered around the eastern mainland are artificial islands, showing a strange distribution, which seems to be deliberately concealed. At this moment, the artificial islands distributed on the sea are facing the wind and waves. As the seawater rises, the artificial islands follow the waves, but in any case they hardly move half a minute to their original position. The position of these artificial islands is the degree of that tsunami. The smallest, the wind and waves are the smallest point at this moment. Residents of several coastal cities settled on artificial islands can feel the shaking of the ground, the shaking of facilities and supplies, and the sound of that tsunami flapping right in their ears. Everyone's hearts have improved, but none of them people are afraid and shrink back, because they believe in the Eastern Project Point on the mainland. Residents from coastal cities outside the inner city welcomed in. Everyone got busy again and settled everything. Point residents from coastal cities moved to the inner city, and all living facilities remained the same. After the residents of coastal cities were added to the originally sluggish streets, everything seemed very crowded, as if they had returned to the metropolis during the civilization period. Chapter 220. On November 18th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, 12 days have passed since the Ocean Age was announced. Point in these 12 days, the whole world is facing the impact of a continuous tsunami, and islands and continents have disappeared from the images taken by satellites, and are covered by the ocean. Point the endless ocean, except for the glaciers in the north and south, the earth is almost covered by a sea blue. The endless sea blue presents a beautiful scenery in the satellite image. The earth restarts, as if it has returned to the original time. Point someone once said that when it is bad to a certain extent, it is a good turning point. At this moment, watching the earth from a satellite, an indescribable feeling is slowly glowing, but everyone has not noticed it, because the only remaining human beings are facing the impact of a continuous tsunami. Point above the surface of the underground castles and underground cities in the west, the sea continued to rush, and the resounding sound was heard underground. Point the sea finally invaded this land, and soon almost submerged this land. The rushing sea caused huge waves ranging from 200 meters to 300 meters, wave after wave, like a muffled thunder, from time to time. Point, because the underground is hollow, if the ground collapses, no one who lives underground will be able to escape the impact of this continuous tsunami, and there is no chance of survival at all. Point the high levels who were optimistic about the underground castle are also full of worries at this moment, and their faces are full of dignity. Point they started the meeting on the highest floor, so they could clearly hear the rushing tsunami from above their heads, and the sound of thunder continued to explode. Point from the start to the shock and the final mood, the faces of all the seniors were full of solemnity. Point everyone was silent, because they did their best. They used their resources to reinforce the entire castle again. Therefore, the construction of the space station was completely stopped. Point at this moment, the deputy minister's face was very ugly. He watched Roddy want to say what his mouth moved before he spoke. As a result, he just spoke, "Minister," and then a large earthquake hit. Point the whole castle is shaking. Point the shaking lasted about 10 minutes. This was originally during the disaster period. Everyone has turned from the initial shock to normal, but at this moment everyone looked pale. Point, because what they are now facing is not just an earthquake, but also a tsunami rushing above their heads. If fortunately, the earthquake stopped, and the survival report came up, the castle was strong, no one was injured, and there was no crack in the cracks of the city wall. Point everyone breathed a sigh of relief. After experiencing the earthquake, the atmosphere of the crowd became active again, and then they discussed Dongfang again. Point everyone can see from the satellite that the situation in the east at this moment is not optimistic. The continuous tsunami submerged the eastern barrier, the separation wall, and the glacier barrier. At this moment, huge waves and seawater are blocked by the glacier barrier. As long as the glacier barrier collapses, the east will be submerged. Coastal cities to inland cities will not be spared. Point the Eagle Country will live forever. To encourage the people, everyone sent out the current situation in the form of an announcement. Since the arrival of the Ocean Age, the Eagle Nation Castle has been extremely strong. It has withstood the earthquake, and withstood the impact of the tsunami. In the face of the following disasters, the Eagle Nation Castle will become the last refuge for mankind. There will be nothing on the surface. The country exists, and the Eagle Country lasts forever. The declaration was exciting. The people of Eagle Nation boiled up, and everyone seemed to see hope, looking forward to the disaster to pass quickly, and their Eagle Nation would be the only country on Earth. Point the announcement was just finished in the afternoon. At 12 o'clock in the evening, a major earthquake struck again, and everyone should continue to work and work after taking a rest and rest point. Then the sudden alarm awakened everyone. Minister, there is a leak in Eagle Country 2 Castle. Roddy was suddenly awakened. Minister, the Eagle Nation 3 Castle leaked. Minister, the 4th castle of Eagle Country has leaked. The bad news came one after another, and Roddy was stunned. In the afternoon they just announced an announcement to encourage people. Who knows? Roddy quickly went into the battle without even wearing his clothes, as did the other high-level officials. Each of them was disheveled and gathered in the conference room. Then orders were issued layer by layer, and the Eagle Nation became a mess at this moment. In the east, the huge tsunami wave still hits the mainland barrier, the steel wall, the glacier barrier, bang bang as if it would never stop. As if nothing happened in the inland cities. Everything went on in an orderly manner. The scorching blast furnace emits heat, and the steam travels through the pipes to each residential building. Surrounding each residential building, the interior is warm like spring, and the wind turbines are rotating for every residential building, every community, factory, and lighthouse. The warehouse provides electricity. The snow country train circumnavigated the country, rumbling almost without stopping, passing through the place flooded by the tsunami, like a huge giant ship, fast passing by, the sea water flowing. It takes a long time to close. This scene is spectacular. At this time, the snow country train and the ocean age should not continue to be called snow country train, but should be changed to water train, which is more appropriate. This is like a plot in a movie, but snow country train faces it was the galloping sea, beating on the snow country train, impacting. The snow country train has also fully played its other role. To a certain extent, it has resisted the impact of seawater. However, its role is much smaller than that of the glacial barrier and the mainland steel barrier. But even so, the snow country train has been delayed. The speed of the tsunami impact slowed its trend. On November 20th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, 14 days have passed since the impact of the tsunami. If the West still pays attention to the East, it will be found that traffic is still maintained above the surface. Over the sea crossing bridge spanning 3 large seas, blizzard chariots are speeding on it, one after another galloping past, which is amazing. And the waves of tsunamis that set off 200 meters high. On both sides of the sea crossing bridge, waves of huge waves continue to rise. The splashed water fell on the sea crossing bridge, creaking and creaking. When the sea waves were the strongest, the sea crossing bridge made a dull sound, but still stands still. In the blizzard chariot, you can clearly see the huge waves from both sides set off. Under close contact, it seems that it will be lifted in the next second, but every blizzard chariot is running on the cross sea bridge without hesitation, against the water mist, followed closely behind the car in front, unswervingly heading to another city. On the blizzard chariot, when Midnight sat in the middle of the vehicle, while the front and back were guarded by people. Chapter 221. Ying Ziyue and his party braved the impact of the tsunami and the bad weather. They started from the other side of the cross-sea bridge, and went to the other side. The destination of their trip was the Bihei warehouse. Zhao Guofeng persuaded Win Midnight to take an airship, but Win Midnight said that riding on a blizzard chariot can make you feel the tsunami situation more. At the same time, Win Midnight did not say that only by getting closer to the disaster, his mind will be more sober. Ying Ziyue originally only planned to take a few people he could trust, but at Zhao Guofeng's insistence, a long line of blizzard chariots appeared on the cross-sea bridge. When Zhao Guofeng sat with the blizzard chariot accompanied by Ying Ziyue, the blizzard chariot was speeding under him. And at the same time it was very unstable. This was caused by the shaking caused by the huge tsunami waves hitting the cross-sea bridge. This is the first time that Zhao Guofeng has experienced the impact of a tsunami personally. So close, as he looked from the window, he could see the wave tip rushing towards him. Even Zhao Guofeng could not help but pale. The heart was beating enthusiastically. This is the case all the way, like walking on a wire rope, full of uncertain dangers. Zhao Guofeng was so frightened that his face turned pale, not to mention the driver. Sometimes the huge waves were too high, and the sea that came upon him suddenly blocked the sight of the drivers. So when everyone was driving on the waves the most, everyone slowed down. When the lot was fierce. After slowing down, everyone can feel the impact of the waves from the tsunami, and everyone can't help but tremble. Winning the night does not allow other redundant people to follow, afraid of accidents, but now they have been driving on The cross-sea bridge. They can no longer look back, only to continue to drive. Point 4 cities near coastal cities. Their travel tools have now changed from blizzard chariots to airship travel. Point even when traveling with an airship, because the waves are already close to 300 meters in some places, all airships have a unified ascent of 400 meters. The extra distance of 100 meters is because the aftermath of the impact caused by the waves easily interferes with the airship point. If you look at the ground from an airship, apart from the endless ocean is the city blocked by the last line of defense. The two are polarized, which is very obvious. The waves outside the city are off, and everything inside the city is the same. Point when Xiao Guofeng's gaze was retracted from the window, he looked towards Win Midnight, and he saw that Win Midnight's face was as usual. He had the same expression since he stepped into the blizzard chariot. It has never changed. Xiao Guofeng's attitude towards Win Midnight curiosity became more and more serious. After thinking about it again and again, Xiao Guofeng asked a very naive question. Group leader, are you not afraid? Ying Ziyue recovered from his meditation and didn't quite understand the question Xiao Guofeng asked. Xiao Guofeng had to repeat it again. Group leader, are you not afraid of this wave of disasters? To be honest, I'm scared. Xiao Guofeng said in an honest way. This is a chat between Xiao Guofeng and Win Midnight. In Xiao Guofeng's mind, Win Midnight is not only the person he wants to protect as the leader of the Special Research Institute, but also because of the age gap that Xiao Guofeng has already regarded Win Midnight as a result of getting along with each other day by day. The younger brother looked at it. Ying Ziyue slowly showed a smile on his face and said, I'm afraid. Sure enough, Xiao Guofeng seemed to have known the answer a long time ago. Before he could continue to speak, Win Midnight continued, what I'm afraid of is not being able to protect this country. Ying Ziyue said, this is also the first time he has confided in his heart. The magnetic voice of Win Midnight echoed in the blizzard chariot, I'm afraid I will fail this country. I'm really proud of being in the East. Ying Ziyue didn't elaborate, but from his voice, I can imagine that being an Oriental is really proud and proud. What I'm afraid of is betraying the trust of the people of the country. Ying Ziyue said, disappearing with a sigh at the end. On his shoulders are the lives of all the people in the country and the future destiny of this big country. You are afraid of winning Midnight. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. This sentence is true. After Ying Ziyue chose this path, he did not hesitate, and any selfishness disappeared in the face of responsibility. What's more, the former has given them good living conditions. Now it's just time to feed back, not to mention that it is not just him who works hard alone, but the whole country works together. The atmosphere fell into silence, and everyone was in a complicated mood, all because of winning Midnight Zero Fine Flowers. Originally, it only took 3 or 4 hours to go to the other side through the cross-sea bridge despite the bad weather. This time it took 3 or 4 more hours due to the impact of that tsunami. Along the way, the heart trembled. After getting off the bridge, the lighthouse was already lit to illuminate the road ahead, and then passed through the underground glacier tunnel and finally came to the North Sea warehouse. At this moment, the Xihai warehouse was not calm because of the rising sea level. It was Ying Ziyue who came to inspect here. Only by seeing him in person can he relax. Winning the Midnight appeared, rushing forward and back. Everyone surrounded him. Although Winning Midnight said no, everyone was surrounding him. Although they couldn't see the look through the winter clothes, everyone was very respectful. When I came to the Xihai warehouse and stood on the edge of the warehouse, a gust of cold wind blew, and I won the eyes of Midnight. Because of the rising sea level, all fishes became active, and all kinds of fish gathered here to form spectacular. At the same time, here is the place with the highest oxygen concentration. Standing here feels refreshed. The person in charge of Xihai warehouse introduced to Ying Ziyue. When Midnight nodded from time to time. The person in charge said, now that there are artificial islands, even if the tsunami inundates here, the artificial islands will continue to develop, and all people can eat fresh fish. The person in charge refers to Xihai Warehouse and Xihai Ecological Park number 3 and number 4 artificial islands. Ying Ziyue glanced at him and said, no, Xihai warehouses and artificial islands must exist. When Ying Ziyue said this sentence, he was extremely confident. Everyone looked at him admiringly, because everyone knew what Ying Ziyue said. must be true, and the North Sea warehouse and the artificial island branch must be there. On November 25th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the sea level stopped rising, and the tsunami offensive began to recede. It has been 19 days since the announcement of the Ocean Age. The disastrous 19 days, the desperate 19 days, finally, will pass. Click at this moment. All satellites have no time to take care of the glaciers in the north and south. The average height of 7,800 is broken, and with this sound, the huge ice body begins to fall off. Death Chapter 222. On November 30th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the global tsunami impact began to fade away. As a result from the satellite, the tsunami hit the most ferocious area, and the ocean covered by the desert country had a huge wave of 1,000 meters. But now it began to recede slowly, reducing to 800 meters, and the neighboring Tsarist country also did. The same point, the impact of the tsunami was not as fierce and violent as before, but it was still huge, and the impact caused continuous damage. Islands were submerged, and the mainland was invaded. Almost all the places where the satellites pass by are endless oceans, with huge waves that continue to set off and submerge everything. The entire Earth is in an apocalyptic environment. In this environment, the only remaining country is like a lone boat, drifting with the wind. And under the impact of huge waves, the existence of the East has also become the largest pure land on the last land. 230 as the first line of defense, the mainland steel barrier played an extraordinary role in blocking the impact of the tsunami. After 24 days, this great project comparable to the Great Wall is still standing. The 4,000 kilometers long line surrounds the East. At this moment, the sea level has slowly receded to about 50 meters, and the height of the huge waves has dropped from 300 meters to 200 meters, and from 200 meters to 150 meters. The offensive is getting weaker and weaker. The pressure on ice-breaking aircraft carriers and new aircraft carriers that confronted the huge waves of the tsunami has gradually reduced. In the endless ocean, they have become a beautiful landscape, carrying them along the coast. At the same time, due to the weakening of the huge tsunami waves, the sea level of the separation wall is also receding, and now it has receded to about 40 meters, and the pressure on the diversion of underground water pipes has been reduced a lot. The third barrier is also the last barrier of the coastal city. After passing the first two lines of defense at this moment, the sea level is reduced to 30 meters, and the height of the huge waves is gradually reduced. But because the tsunami lasted too long, some of the coastal cities were already submerged in seawater. The once magical residential buildings were soaked in seawater, and all the streets were filled with seawater, sweeping the entire city. Simply, the city at this moment is empty, and the waves swept through without harming anyone's life. At the same time, when relocating, everyone also demolished all the available resources that could be taken away, so the loss of the flooded city at this moment was taken away, reduced to a minimum. The inland cities remain the same. Everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. Because of the migration of coastal cities, the streets have become crowded, and the city has become more popular in an instant, and the city has become warmer at the same time, as the artificial islands drifting on the sea weakened. At the moment as the offensive of the tsunami and waves weakened, the foundation of the floating slab gradually became stable, which lasted for more than 20 days, and finally everything returned to calm. The state of the East gradually returned to more than 20 days ago, and the West is not peaceful at this moment. There was a leak in Eagle Country 2, 3, 4 castle, and cracks gradually formed on the walls due to successive earthquakes. The occurrence of cracks is nothing at all. But because the tsunami waves are surging above the head, the area of the cracks created by the force of the tsunami becomes larger, and the seawater is poured in. All of the Eagle Nation entered a rush to repair, but their strength was no better than the power of the tsunami. The tsunami power that could submerge several cities soon became more and more flooded. Catcher. What is even more terrifying is that the gap is enlarged, and the spread speed is extremely fast. And at this time, the arc that Roddy ordered to make worked. After full rescue, underground castles number 2 and number 3 were controlled to spread, while number 4, the gap continued to expand. The seawater irrigated in and soon filled half of the castle. All the people are yelling, all climbing up, all praying. A tragedy on Earth. Those who climbed up to the heights survived, but those at the bottom did not have this good luck. So the maid ark was dispatched. The huge ark rumbling sound. This sound is very beautiful in the underground castle at this moment. After rush repairs, castle number 4 was finally brought under control. But at the same time many Western people died. The alive people saved their lives because they boarded the ark. Now no one dares to say that the Ark project is useless at this moment. The high-level meeting of the underground castle in the west is silent. Especially the deputy minister, who is usually arrogant. Now his head is almost under the table. At the beginning, he strongly opposed the Ark project, even taking the lead against Roddy. How opposed there was at the beginning. Now there are more slaps. Vice Minister Mark sees Roddy's eyes dodgingly and dare not look at each other. This time Roddy finally found a chance, and he immediately ordered the removal of the deputy minister. Others dare not object, because Roddy's proposal saved hundreds of thousands of people at the time. Of course, the former is more important than a deputy minister. After the dismissal, the room was silent again, and the faces of those who opposed the Ark's plan at the time were hot. After another 10 minutes of silence, Roddy said, "Next. Proceed as planned." There was no pride on his face, only solemnity. During the disaster period, all personal interests will be ranked behind. In Roddy's body, he shoulders the responsibility of the entire country. Roddy's eyes drooped, not knowing what he was thinking. Someone left one after another. Finally, there were still a few cronies in the room. Someone asked cautiously, "Minister, why did you order the building of the Ark in the first place?" Hearing these words, Roddy was shocked. He did not answer the question of his cronies, but looked to the east. Roddy also has questions in his heart. How did the East make the unpredictable profit? On December 5th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the impact of that tsunami slowly subsided. The ocean tsunami wave covering the desert country where that tsunami originated was reduced again. The highest wave is now only about 200 meters and continues to fall. Everything is developing in a good direction. Since the Ocean Age announced that it has been nearly a month, it is difficult for everyone to continue to bear the continuous impact of that tsunami. North and south glaciers. Another big piece of ice broke, and then, like a domino, it began to fall and collapse. When satellites noticed here, a large part of the ice layer of the glaciers in the north and south had been fragmented. The sea level raised from the glaciers in the north and south rose again, and the tsunami intensified again. And just before, the existing countries are waiting for this disaster to pass, and everyone will re-participate in infrastructure renovation. The tsunami waves did not destroy mankind, and everyone once again moved forward with hope in the disaster. Chapter 223. December 7th. The 7th year of the Ice Age. The sky is still dim. The time of light has not changed. The earth is enveloped throughout the day. No, the ocean is enveloped, and there is more darkness, endless darkness. The sea is surging in the darkness, like a fierce beast, roaring, swallowing every continent and island. In the weather of -180 degrees, the blizzard trend gradually weakened as the day went on, but the heavy snow quickly flooded every area, falling in the ocean, dissolving in the ocean, and the temperature below the sea surface, which can reach -190 degrees. The land and islands are covered with crystals layer by layer, and then icebergs and glaciers are gradually formed. In the weather of -180 degrees, icebergs and glaciers are formed in some places where the sea passes by, and they are stacked on top of each other. From a distance, the formation of icebergs and glaciers is even larger than the previous 6 years. Even more majestic and spectacular, occupying every inch of land and islands at this moment, amidst waves of weakening tsunamis, a giant iceberg ship is driving on the sea. The huge iceberg ship used for amphibious purposes can not only slide on ice, but also parade in the water. In its production, a special material is used. Like the iceberg barrier, it will be stronger when it meets water and snow. The direction that iceberg giant ship number 1 is heading is the artificial island number 3 and number 4. These islands number 3 and number 4 are the branches of the Northern Ecological Park and the Northern Warehouse. On these 2 islands, they carry very important materials. Therefore, they are also the focus of the inspection of the island. Standing on the top of the iceberg giant ship, you can clearly see the surrounding environment from the midnight wind point. Ying Ziyue looked and saw, all was a piece of Wangyang Ocean. The water was deep blue, and huge waves hit the iceberg giant ship point. Because the waves of that tsunami are gradually weakening, and the huge iceberg ship is huge, it is not too bumpy when sailing on the sea point. Then the telescope lifted by Ying Ziyue can see far away. In the line of sight of Ying Ziyue, ice-breaking aircraft carriers and new type aircraft carriers are fighting against the waves. This scene is truly spectacular and stunning, because while other countries are thinking about how to survive, the East is thinking about how to fight, and how to fight. Then Ying Ziyue saw the mainland steel barrier, which was the first line of defense against the tsunami and the huge waves. Now the sea level has dropped to 40 meters, and the height of the huge waves is about 100 meters. Everything is going in a good direction. Developing. It seems that the impact of this tsunami, which lasted more than a month, will soon pass. When midnight took back the telescope, because the artificial island number 3 has arrived. Waiting to when midnight is the person in charge of the island. Hearing that when midnight came, all the high-level officials of the island gathered at the mouth of the island where the iceberg giant ship listened and greeted each other with respect. When a group of people appeared, the person in charge of the island saw the figure of Win Midnight at a glance, because the temperament of the other person walking was very different from that of others, not to mention that the other person was hugged by the front and back. The person in charge of the island greeted him warmly. The group did not say much, and then began to inspect the artificial island number 3. Win Midnight came to inspect artificial islands number 3 and number 4 before the tsunami stopped. He was really worried about the situation here, so he would not wait until everything calmed down. The foundation built by the floating slab greatly relieved the pressure of the tsunami wave, but because the tsunami wave was too long this time, every artificial island was not affected much. The ecological garden, fruits and vegetables, pigs, cattle, and sheep that Ying Ziyue inspected have all suffered considerable losses. The workers on this island were undergoing rush repairs when the losses first appeared. Therefore, it took a whole month. They didn't have much rest during the time, and when they heard that when midnight was about to come to inspect, everyone was full of spirits, and everyone's eyes were radiant, looking forward to the arrival of when midnight. Seeing the exhausted workers who had minimized their losses due to rush repairs, Ying Ziyue patted one of the workers on the shoulder and said, "Thank you." The workers were moved to tears in an instant. Because of the hard work of winning the midnight, he solemnly raised his hands and said, "For the country and the people, it is not hard, okay?" With a cheer, when midnight said loudly, "Although there is a kind of communication through the oxygen mask, there is no need for eyes, no need to speak too much, and it has long been deeply planted in my heart." Ying Ziyue continued to inspect the Bihei warehouse branch, and the warehouse built on the island was also injured by the impact of the tsunami. The fishes selected by the Bihei warehouse are put on the artificial island. Even if the area of artificial island 4 is not too large, the fish here is the most abundant artificial island except for the Bihei warehouse. At the same time, all over the artificial island number 4, and even other artificial islands, there are lush green seaweed planted everywhere, and it is almost the only green on the island, providing oxygen for everyone in the environment. The new plants are also being studied so that they can be put in the difficult environment of -180 degrees to provide more oxygen and food for herbivorous animals. Ying Ziyue once vowed that he wanted this century of ice and snow not only to be covered with seaweed, but also on the streets, in the wild, and in the suburbs. Once again, the greenery and vitality of the re-civilization period. What a great vow this is. Only win the midnight with confidence to speak out. Now, in front of everyone again, when midnight speaks again, definitely, it will be re-civilized. On the street, there is no longer only one color, and outside the city, it is not just the vast white snow. In the future, all kinds of flowers and trees will be scattered all over this east again. In the future, people can travel without wearing oxygen masks. Future everyone was excited to watch Win Midnight. At this moment, the picture of the old civilization is presented in everyone's mind. The whole person is surging along with it. Everyone believes that the guardian of the great country will do it when he says it. Report leader, Just as Ying Ziyue was preparing to evacuate the artificial island number 4, a news came quickly. After Zhao Guofeng received the news, his face was very solemn. He didn't know how to speak. At this moment, his heart was filled with despair. Team leader, the melting of ice and snow on the northern and southern glaciers will cause another tsunami. Impact. I don't know our project. It is no wonder that the Zhao summit is desperate, because the north-south glaciers cover the largest area and the environment is the cruelest. Many disasters originate from the north-south glaciers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224. Team leader, the melting of ice and snow on the northern and southern glaciers will cause another tsunami impact. I don't know our project. It is no wonder that the Zhao summit is desperate, because the north-south glaciers cover the largest area and the environment is the cruelest. Many disasters originate from the north-south glaciers. Therefore, the melting of the glaciers in the north and south will cause the tsunami to intensify again, even more violent than before. After more than a month of resistance, Zhao Guofeng really has no confidence in fighting the next disaster. Zhao Guofeng clicked on the video to watch the video of the melting of the glaciers in the north and south for Ying Ziyue. Large chunks of ice fall off the glaciers in the north and south, and these ice layers average 4,800 meters and can reach 7,800 meters, which is higher than a skyscraper. It is conceivable that, if all of these ice layers melt and fall into the sea, it would be no less than 1. The impact of small planets on the Earth will cause global waves. If this is the beginning of the disaster, all countries may have the confidence to carry it through. But after more than a month of continuous tsunami, all projects and all resources have fallen into scarcity, and it is urgent to replenish vitality and re-infrastructure to fight the melting of glaciers in the north and south. Zhao Guofeng was filled with despair. Let alone people from other countries at almost the same moment. The existing countries also received news from satellites. The northern and southern glaciers are melting at an accelerating rate. Pieces of ice that are huge and comparable to skyscrapers are constantly collapsing and falling onto the water. The scene is magnificent. However, this spectacular is fatal. The average ice layer of the southern and northern glaciers is 4,800 meters, and the highest can reach 7,800 meters. Even if the airship passes by, it needs to rise to more than 8,000 meters to fly over these ice layers. But the northern and southern glaciers are cruel. In this environment, almost no creature can survive. Airships, blizzard chariots, iceberg giant ships, etc. are even more impossible to enter, because the environment is too cruel. The large ice layer falls off, and the splashing waves can reach a height of nearly 1,000 meters, and can submerge countless land and islands. If these ice layers fall off together, or cannot continue to collapse, it will cause the global disaster is extremely serious, and there will be no living creatures in the world, and will die in the next giant tsunami. Desperate, really desperate, very desperate. When people from the Rose Country, the Eagle Country, and other countries received the news from the satellite, all the high-level officials slumped in their chairs, speechless for a long time. They don't know what to say, because at this moment any words are useless and pale. A breath of death spread even more in the conference room. The strength gradually disappeared from the body, and the eyes of all high-level people in the west appeared dead grey, and they were extremely desperate at this moment. It took a long time for Roddy to regain his strength, and said, "How long does it take for the glaciers to melt? Or, how much time do we have left?" At the end, Roddy's voice was trembling. Everyone didn't answer, because when they received the news from the satellite, they reported it to Roddy as soon as possible. Hope the other party can come up with useful ideas. The same thing happened in the Rose Country. Despair in the high-level meeting room, and despair that had never been felt before. Everyone, "Minister, what should we do?" The high-level voice trembling. "How long does it take for the glaciers to melt both the south and the north? According to our estimation, it only takes 10 days for the glaciers to melt in the north and south. If they all melt, it will be the impact of a super tsunami." Minister, are there only 10 days left? Minister Rose Country's face was filled with despair. Yes minister, maybe there is hope, maybe what? Interrupting his subordinates, Minister Rose Country was silent for a long time, and then he said, make it clear, and send out an announcement, to tell all the people of Rose Country, that the last time has come, and this time will be forever. Minister, I'm afraid this is wrong. What's wrong? The people should have the right to know. I don't want them to know that they died in the last tsunami impact. Yes, minister. At the same time, Roddy, minister of the Eagle Country, also issued such a notice. The rhetoric of the Eagle Country is the same as the rhetoric of the Rose Country. The last 10 days are now, and there are only the last 10 days left for mankind. Enjoy the last 10 days with your family, because after 10 days, it will be a farewell point. As soon as the news announcement was issued, it caused an uproar and deep despair in an instant. Just before I just announced the announcement that the tsunami is about to recede, a new era is coming, and the light will fall on everyone's heads. Only a few days later, I told them that there are still 10 days left. Who can tell us what is going on? There are still 10 days left. Tina, can we not survive the disaster of the Ice Age in the end? John, oh, no, it's not true. Impossible. Impossible. My goodness. Maximum no. It's impossible. John Mew. Almost everyone could not accept this announcement. Everyone fell into a deep despair. After giving them hope, this despair gave them another blow. Everyone could not accept it. It was too sad and desperate. After the news announcement was issued, some people couldn't help but despair and committed suicide directly, and the suicide rate was on the rise, because everyone was really, but, unacceptable. The West is in chaos, and the situation in the East is not much better. When the senior officials in the East received the news from the satellite, everyone fell into silence. They did not expect that there would be a greater disaster waiting for them next. Then, everyone looked at the young man on the main seat. Group leader, what should we do next? Yeah, group leader, what shall we do next? How to do it? Winning Midnight's gaze was skipped from the faces of the professors, deans, and other researchers present. At this moment, the weather-beaten faces were full of worries, complexities, and so on. Continue infrastructure construction. Win Midnight with a big wave. What else can I do? As long as you don't die, you will continue to fight this day in this place. The Yan Huang bloodline left by the ancestors always reminds that even if you die, you will not admit defeat. Chapter 225. On December 7th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, the last 10 days were left before the last moment of survival in the world. In these last 10 days, the Western approaches to stop all work, engineering, and family reunion, waiting for death together, and the East at 10 o'clock in the evening of December 7th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, an announcement detonated the Eastern network. The content of the announcement and the thinking of the Rose Country, Eagle Country and others, the people have the right to know the truth of the matter, and the right to know the consequences of the melting of the glaciers in the North and South. You can't hide this kind of thing, because it will happen in the end. Instead of doing this, it's better to prepare everyone in their hearts, so that they can accept it when the final death comes, or use the only time left to do it to accomplish what you want. Do not leave any regrets about what to do. But unlike the West, the East's subsequent announcement said, although there are still 10 days left, everything is possible in these 10 days. Just like before, we survived the 6 years of the Ice Age, and experienced the Ice Age. In the first year, the 5th year of the Ice Age, the triple disasters created super projects that could not be achieved in the civilization period, such as continental barrier steel walls, underground glacier tunnels, glacier barriers, sea crossing bridges, artificial islands, and other super projects. So, what else is impossible? For the last 10 days, let us fight together, go all out, and leave no regrets. A declaration of passion. Ignite the network. 233. Regardless of the age, chicken soup is useful, and a teacher said that chicken soup is only useful for people who can hear it, and those who think chicken soup is useless. No matter how much chicken soup is infused, it is useless. This chicken soup in the East is not groundless. Looking back on the previous 7 years, the East has survived many disasters and survived, and the projects that were not possible in the civilization period were all realized in the Ice Age point, and this fully reflects the fact that only by uniting as one and the people of the whole country can we survive the disaster together. Come on, Dongfang, talking freely, please give the order, it must be completed. And we must be able to survive the disaster. 3000 weak water, go all out, and leave no regrets. Coffee, we have survived the disasters of the previous 7 years. Are we still afraid of the disasters that follow? Feng Dehei, yes, I believe that our country's super project will be able to hold on. I believe, so, ask for the battle. Hulu wow. Yanjing City asks to go to war. North City asks to go to war. East City asks to go to war. Request to play. Request to play. Request to play. In the last 10 days, when the West made its own choice again, and gave up resistance, all cities in the East had no hesitation, and asked to fight. The blood of Yan and Huan was blazing, igniting the ice and snow continent. Everyone did not choose to back down, did not give up confrontation because of fear, but chose to continue to move forward courageously. It is good. After receiving requests from all the cities to go to the battle, when Midnight shouted out loudly, "You are worthy of being a citizen of the East." The blood of Yan and Huan flowing on his body is so bloody, it is good. Ying Ziyue couldn't help but expose the emotions on his face, and then continued the meeting, made a plan, stayed up all night. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the plan was released, and it was distributed non-stop, distributed to every department and every link, and there was no trace of it. All cities also received orders afterwards to travel with that tsunami while that tsunami is still going on. Continental barriers, steel walls, separation walls, glacier barriers, and so on all need to be maintained. For everyone, this is an extremely difficult task. It is even more difficult than building a glacier barrier at sub-zero temperatures, because not only the sub-zero weather, but also the huge waves and tsunamis that are set off, the operation is twice as difficult. Big, harder than any super project. Before leaving, all the people on the trip had a good reunion with their families for the last half day. They soothed them and told them what they thought and spent the last time with their families. Then, when the time came, turned around and walked out of the house. In Yanjing City, all workers and labor forces have gone out of their homes in Bicheng City. All workers and labor forces have walked out of their homes in Dongcheng City. All workers and labor forces have left their homes behind them are their families, old people, wives, and children watching them get on the blizzard chariot and then start one by one and go out. This time I went. I didn't know what dangers would be encountered, what difficulties would be encountered, or when I would be able to return. But all the people in the East stepped on the chariot without hesitation, because they knew that there were thousands of people behind them. A family is a big country, and it is worth it for everyone to give up a small family. Booming, the blizzard chariots on the ground traveled in groups, and they drove out of the city and then into the underground glacier tunnel. This is the most convenient and fast passage, which can save a lot of time without facing the formation on the ground. Icebergs, glaciers, ice barriers, etc. save a lot of trouble. Above the sky, all the airships set off for their destinations, transporting various materials and some Eastern people on the airships. The green airships are looming in the clouds and fog. The characters are calm on the surface of the airship, just like this nation. No country trains, iceberg giant ships, mechas, and all the tools that can be used are not idle. Dongfang now uses all the power that can be used to repair and protect the barrier. Dongfang no longer retains any power, nor does it retain his whole cards, because this is a truly catastrophic moment. All projects will impact a huge tsunami 10 days later, which is even more terrifying than the previous super tsunami during the triple disaster. At 2 PM on December 8th, the 7th year of the Ice Age, all in the West were waiting for death to come. Roddy received the news that all the East were dispatched to the place where the tsunami happened. Blizzard chariots, airships, snow country trains, iceberg giant ships, etc. are all dispatched. What did you say? Roddy never expected that death was doomed. Dongfang was still acting, and he did not give up in the slightest. This made Roddy feel the true power of this nation for the first time, and since then, he never dared to have any contempt. Dongfang, aren't you afraid of death? After a long time, Roddy spit out point then. Roddy immediately ordered everyone once again put all their power into the Ark project at any cost. Minister, what are you, asshole thing? Don't you see that Dongfang hasn't given up yet? Since they haven't given up, if we give up, doesn't it prove that we are inferior to Dongfang? Yes, I will give an order. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.